Good morning, everyone. Bit of an early start today, but let's precept and get things underway, and then people will start filling in as we do. Last week I was thinking to myself, I was going to talk to you about what we discussed the previous week. And then someone in the audience was fanning themselves. In response to that, I said, maybe we need to adjust the cooling. And then one thing turned to another, and before we know it, we're talking about the war in some part of the world. This is what you do to me. This is a typical case of hetum paticca sambhota. Everything is pachuppanna. This moment the environment changes, you get a different product. It's a different result. Because I don't come prepared with a speech. This is just off the cuff. And so when the environment changes, if one of you, the slightest change in the environment will completely send this off on a different track. So this is what it is. So let's see what today is going to be. But I have made a resolve to go back and talk about what we discussed 2 weeks ago, as well as a sermon from, I think, a week before that. So these are all promises. Like leaves that just blow away in the wind. These are promises. And promises are meant to be. I didn't say that, you did. Right. Let us all bring our palms together then to make our veneration to the Supremely Enlightened One, the Perfect One, the Undefeated One, the Unvanquished One, reminding ourselves of how grateful we are to be in the presence of His teaching and the presence of His disciples who show us the path to our deliverance. Let us also remind ourselves that this is not a mere mark of our veneration, but a pledge of our allegiance and a reminder to ourselves as to our purpose of being here. The Buddha represents the truth, the Dhamma, the teaching, and the Sangha, our practice to get us and take us to that ultimate truth. Bearing that in mind, let us seek refuge in the Noble Triple Gem, observe the precepts. We will then invite the countless sentient beings within earshot of this talk. May they join us and witness this meritorious deed and a meritorious gathering of individuals that you are, so that they may rejoice in this and earn such merits that today they may be lacking in, which is why they are not here in physical form. Let us invite them to join us with compassion and a sense of gratitude for all that they have done for us. And once we are done with all that, we will get started with today's sermon. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Before we begin, would you all like to do a meritorious deed? Yes? Okay. Check that you have put your phones on silent. If you don't have your phone, this is the moment you have to regret not bringing it in. Because had you brought it in, you could have done the minute, right? Just kidding. You don't have to bring it in if you don't need to. How is that meritorious, what you just did? How does that earn you merits? Of course, yes. Because you're doing it out of compassion. You're doing it so that you don't disrupt the sermon. I mean, it's okay to disrupt the sermon, but if you disrupt someone else's concentration during the sermon, it's possible that they'll struggle to follow that train of thought from there. So out of compassion for others around you, it's a meritorious deed that you can do. It's a quick win. And then there's another thing that you do from time to time, that is you kick your bottles. It's okay if it's a plastic bottle, not much of a, otherwise it's a jump starter. So if you have a metal bottle, particularly a metal one, and it has no casing, one way to avoid the noise is if you can put it to a case of some sort. Then even if you knock it or someone next to you inadvertently kicks it, then if it drops, and not too much of a noise. But if you have one, just make sure, extend your leg and see whether it's within within that distance. If it is, just move it out of the way, so that you don't give anyone a shock. Right, so having earned some merits right at the start, let's make a start then. Are you all comfortable? Still anyone feeling too cold? Is the chiller blowing at you? If it is, just, it's okay, you can just let us know. We can try and do our best to help you feel comfortable. Nothing's worse than being in the middle of a really interesting part of the sermon and then your bladder going, take me out, I need to answer a call. And when your bladder starts doing that, and the Swaminatha is asking you to focus and pay attention, then you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. Everyone comfortable? Excellent. Right, before I get distracted then, let's revisit a topic that we discussed a couple of weeks ago, because I promised you that I would go over it and help you make a little bit more sense of it. Okay? So again, no promises that what I start, I will finish. There's only one thing that I'm determined to finish that I have started, that is my practice. Nothing else I can be absolutely certain of. But my practice I will finish, because I don't want to come back and do it another time. It's hard enough having been born human, and to have the opportunity to do it in the presence of a teacher. I often think to myself about Guru Handru. I consider myself to be the most fortunate person at the monastery, because I have everything Guru Handru has, and I have a teacher, which he doesn't have. I know he considers all of us and the community and the teachings and the scriptures and all that and his merit, but he's reliant on that. If he has a doubt, then he can discuss. Of course, he does that with us from time to time. But then to have the comfort, to have the luxury of having a teacher is, I think, a great blessing. So I always tell him, Guru Handru, there is one person who is more fortunate than you at the monastery. Because he always boasts about how meritorious he is. Right? And I wait until he gets off the Dharmasana and comes up to the kuti, and I say, correction. There's one individual who is more meritorious than you are, because he has you and you don't have you. To which he smiles and walks past. So, anyway, we were talking about the past and the future and the present. Let's go back to that then. We tend to understand life as a series of events that happen on a timeline. Time seems to be an intricate part of how we understand life, how we understand our existence. The word existence itself implies that things happen to us over a period of time, that we are a function of time. That's why we say we exist, because to exist something must be true. What is that? Time must be true, right? Because the moment you say I exist, you can almost immediately ask the question, for how long? So when you're waiting for a bus, you can say, I have been existing at this bus halt. And then you can go on to say, for how long? We say we are alive, and then we take our birthdays to celebrate how long we have been alive. So we understand life as a series of events that happen on a timeline of existence. Does that make sense so far? Right? I'll take this slow, because I recognize there are some new faces in the audience as well. And if this sermon was originally difficult for us to get our heads around, even for seasoned listeners, then with new individuals in the audience, it's going to sound gobbledygook unless I take it slow and steady. But this is not complicated stuff, it's just a bit subtle, that's all. But the moment you get your head around it, you'll be like, that? Got it. So this is not complicated. But two things are essential. What are they? Merit and attention. Good. So we've got ensured both now, right? We did some merits at the start, and then we did what we can to make sure that our attention is not interrupted, by doing two things, two in one. We got our merits as well as did away with the interruptions. Okay? So when we think that this moment that we are in as now, we also tend to call it the present. Everything before this point is what we call the past. And this is the future. This is how we understand life. This is a dimension that we feel is an intricate part of our lives. It almost feels like we can't be without this. If we couldn't speak of yesterdays and tomorrows, life would be so boring, wouldn't it? What makes life so interesting? The fact that we can talk about all the good things that happened yesterday and all the interesting things that we are going to look forward to tomorrow. It gives us something to talk about. It gives us something to interest someone else and to be interested in someone else. But the problem is this all true? We just take this for granted, that there is such a thing called time. And whatever happened to us. That's how we feel. And whatever will happen is also going to happen to us. To us, by us, I mean me. So when I say me, I'm talking about all of you. That's how we see the world. So today is Sunday. And there'll be things you do routinely on a Sunday. One of those things is coming here for the sandwich you get at the end of the for the sermon. For the sermon you get before the sandwich. Then there'll be things you would routinely do on a Saturday. So whatever happened yesterday happened to whom? Happened to me. Happened to you, happened to me. We take that for granted. Has anyone ever questioned that? When your teacher asked you at school, have you done your homework? Then you go, what homework? And then your teacher says, the homework I gave you yesterday. You go, oh, that homework. See, the teacher never doubted or caused you to doubt or question the presence of a yesterday. Yesterday was taken for granted. In fact, if you had said, but there was no yesterday, that would be the last day that you would be in that class, or you'd have to ask your parents, you'd have to go to school with your parents the following day. And if the teacher says, I'm going to give you a test tomorrow, and if you had responded by saying, but there's no such thing called tomorrow, then the same consequences would have followed. To be honest, isn't this the only platform where we have actually questioned this? Now, of course, scientists have begun to ask this question, right? In modern times, if you subscribe to some of those talks and maybe TED Talks even, like there are people who come up on stage and talk about these things. Scientists of the modern era, they have started to question these things. Is there such a thing called time? But science alone, the science that we understand, we learnt at school, physics, chemistry, biology, math, these things alone, ladies and gentlemen, cannot unpack this riddle for you. No matter how much you try, these things alone cannot unwind this for you. And the reason for that is this. None of those teachings, none of those philosophies, if I refer to science as a philosophy, physics as a philosophy for the purpose of this discussion, if I refer to physics as a philosophy, they don't question your self. They don't question the existence of a self. They don't question you and whether you actually exist. But here's what they question. I'm here, but is time here? That's what they question. So there's me. I'm here, but does the past exist? Does the future exist? We could talk about the absence of a past or the absence of a future, but do you not inherently feel like you exist? You know, no matter what scientific theories we bring up, what experiments scientists conduct in laboratories, do you genuinely not feel the existence of a self? Don't you feel an identity? Don't you feel like everything that happened yesterday happened to you? And everything that's about to happen to you is going to happen to you? You can't disconnect or divorce time from your experience of the world for as long as you sense yourself. These things can't be divorced. And that is because the concept of a self is fundamentally based on existence. You perceive a self, it's a cognitive phantom. That's what it is. It's a cognitive phantom. Your mind fabricates a self because it believes that existence is true. And I doubt any scientist in a laboratory is ever going to walk out of it and go, I don't exist. They might say these words because it makes theoretical sense, but it won't stop them feeling it on the inside. Because you can't stop your mind from doing things because it is not you who's doing it, and therefore it cannot be you who stops doing it. There is no doer in any of these things, just the done. Is it you who coughs when you have a cough? Not when you do it deliberately, but when you feel the sensation of a cough or a sneeze, is it you who does it? Then why don't you just not do it when it's not the right place and the right time to do it? Now let's say we are in the midst of a sermon, right? This is the last place you should be coughing and sneezing and making any noises. Because You know that you're going to interrupt someone's attention, right? So I know that none of you here want to do that. But the moment you feel a sneeze working its way up, or a cough brewing its way out of you, then what do? You try and suppress it. You will try and suppress it. Maybe you'll take a quick drink of water, maybe you'll rub your nose or something. But let's be honest, it's only a matter of time. You can push it back, but you can't completely do away with it, because either this moment or the next, it's going to come. And when it comes, you are as vulnerable as anyone else in this room. That's why even if we asked for pin drop silence in this audience and someone sneezed, what should we do? Do we sue them? Do we tell them off? Do we say, how dare you? But if we see two people talking with each other, then we could do that, couldn't we? We could say, hey, did we not agree that we were going to be quiet during this time, so can you stop your chatter? We can do that. But if someone started sneezing continuously, so first sneeze, second sneeze, third sneeze, by which sneeze are you going to say, enough already? That makes no sense, because we know that it is not them who's doing it, it just happens, right? Just happens. The same is true for your sense of self. It is not you who does it. It happens. And because it happens, ladies and gentlemen, the dimension of time also happens. Therefore, your experience of time also happens. You can't walk out of a laboratory or a physics discourse, or having studied time and what time is, and having disproven the existence of time. You can do all that in a laboratory or in a seminar hall, but you'll walk out of it still feeling that you exist. Because the only science that helps you free from that is the science of the Buddha, which is the science of the mind. In fact, that is why it is called Buddha. Buddha, to give you a definition of the word, it's freedom from self. Freedom from being. This is an ing verb. That's why the word human being is a very interesting one. You are a human being because you are being human. You're not is human. You can't say, I'm a human is. Why is that? Fair enough, it makes grammatically it would be wrong, semantically it would be wrong, syntactically it would be wrong, but that's besides the point. It just doesn't sound right to say human is. And it's not right to say human is because it's not a state. It's not that's it, you're human and that's it. It's not like that. You have to continue to be human. It's a continuous action. So you have to speak of it in the progressive tense. It's happening right now. You're being human, therefore you are a human being. This pen is being a pen. This is a pen being, because it's being a pen. Nothing is done. Nothing is finished. Nothing is complete. Everything is in a process. The sense of self is the same. It's in a process. Because it's in a process is dependent on causes and an environment. When there are causes and an environment that are conducive for those causes to work in a particular order, then you call that a process. Let's take a very simple example that you can relate to. Think of the process of talking, right? Talking. This is a process. For talking to happen, in other words, to vibrate make some vibrations on my side, and then for you to be able to hear that, this conversation to happen, it's not enough for there to be causes. There has to be an environment that is supportive. If we removed all the air from this room, if we removed the medium from this room, that is the air, then no matter how much I wanted to talk, you would not be able to hear me. So causes alone is not sufficient. You need an environment. When these two things come together, now I can talk and you can hear. This is a process. Being alive is a process. Now we have studied biology, at least to some extent, to understand that our bodies are continuously working hard to keep us alive. To be alive is not a job that is done. Do you think it is? Can your heart just beat once and go, right, that's it, live for the rest of it with this? No. It has to keep on pumping. And your lungs have to keep on inhaling and exhaling. Just to name one or two. But every cell of your body, every system that these cells combine to make, they're constantly working to keep you alive. So is being alive a state or a continuous process? What do you think it is? It's a process. What about standing? Is that done or is that a process? That's a process. That's why people faint. Now if you stood outside for too long, what would happen on a hot sunny day? You faint. Who's got that experience? I've had that experience myself. Because the moment your knees give in, the moment the muscles of your legs give in, they can no longer sustain the weight of your body, you collapse. Meaning, at every moment, your legs have to keep working hard to keep you upright. What about sitting upright? What about that? Now, as we continue with this discussion, if someone just goes like this, then you know that they're either asleep or asleep for good. But if you see someone's head drooping like this, what do you normally do? That's exactly what you do. Hoping that Swami Nwazi doesn't catch you in the act, right? Because you don't want to embarrass that individual. No one wants to fall asleep, but it happens if you've had a long night. So it can happen. What if you don't have enough oxygen in your body? So, we are glad to be in a room where there's enough ventilation. If there wasn't enough oxygen in here, or if you didn't have enough energy in your system, if you hadn't had a meal, right, then your body becomes weak and you start to fall asleep. Therefore, are you awake or are you staying awake? You're staying awake. It's a process. What about holding your head up like this? You don't think about this, do you? But let's be honest. You have not put your head up like this and it's there now till the end of time. That's why the moment your eyes shut, your head goes down like that. Because now your neck is not receiving the commands from your nervous system to say, keep it upright, keep it upright, keep it upright. You can't hear that voice, but there's a continuous supply of energy and the nervous system working with those muscles to keep your head upright like this. What about keeping your eyelids open? That's also a process. Sitting upright is a process, standing up is a process. All of these are processes. What about the roof above our head? Surely that's not alive, so there can't be a process. It is a process. Of course it is a process. Now, simple physics teaches us that it's a process because there are forces acting in both directions. There's a force of weight that acts on the ceiling towards the floor, towards the ground, and then there's an equal and opposite reaction that is acting on the roof, that's keeping it there. It seems like it's just there, static. It's not static. This is a very dynamic process. So say your prayers. Because who knows when that process might stop? See, to be part of a process is risky business. And the reason for that, ladies and gentlemen, is there are a multitude of causes and an environment that have to work together to keep that process running. Now, when your car engine, you turn on the engine, there are many parts and pieces of that marvel of human engineering that keeps it running. How many pieces do you think work in unison, in collaboration to keep that engine running? Countless. It's just a marvel of human engineering. The air conditioner, that's a process. What about the room temperature? This ambient room temperature, is that done? No, because you're doing what right now to it? You're heating it up. That's why this is called an air conditioner. Not hair conditioner. That's what you use. This is the air conditioner because it keeps conditioning the air. It keeps conditioning the air. So if you switch it off now, in 5 minutes time, 10 minutes time, it would be almost impossible to remain in this room. Do you see? Nothing is static. Everything is dynamic. Everything is in a dynamic process. But it seems like things are done. See, this pen is done. It came out of the manufacturing plant like this. And it seems like it's done. But the truth is, it's in a state of dynamic equilibrium. This pen, excuse me, this pen, I'll have you know, is an aggregation of energy. This is an aggregation of energy. There are bits of energy that make up this pen that are constantly not being the pen. In other words, I might even call it disintegrating. There are bits of energy that make this pen that are constantly disintegrating, meaning it's becoming something other than the pen. And then there's also energy that's constantly integrating, meaning becoming part of this pen. But because it's dynamic, you don't see anything happen. But you know that over time, all things crumble, break, disintegrate. So there comes a point where disintegration takes over and integration happens less. And when that happens, one day you might be able to even pick this pen up and all that will be left in your hand would be just dust. The whole thing would just crumble into nothing. That's why when you hold something really antique, you've got to be careful. Not least because you might drop it and break it, but sometimes it could be very fragile. The bonds that are inside that keep it like that may no longer be there. Therefore, it's just in a very fine, subtle state of dynamic equilibrium. One tiny exertion of energy could completely dismantle the whole thing. The long and the short of all this is that everything is in a state of dynamic equilibrium and in a process. Nothing is ever done. Marriage. See, I bring very familiar examples to you because that makes sense now, doesn't it? All this roof didn't make sense. Pen didn't make sense. Marriage, that makes sense. Because you understand how much effort has to be put in to keep it intact. Because you have to do 50% of it, and hopefully the other party does the other 50. I can hear some of you going, Swaminathan sir, that's not true. I do 99. He's just there. Either way, it's a process. Anything is a process. Anything that's in a state of order is a process. Anything that's not in a state of order is in a state of chaos. And the same is true about your sense of self. But this is not how you feel. This is not how you feel it. Do you feel like you're constantly pulling yourself together? I don't mean physically. I of course don't mean physically. I mean your perception of you. Do you feel you're constantly building your perception of yourself? Or is it just there? It's always there, isn't it? It's always there. From the day you can remember, from when you were just a little kid to today, and you have full assurance and you're very confident that until the day you die, it's going to be who? It's going to be me. It's going to be me. That is an illusion. You're thinking that you are a done thing. You are a finished product. That's only an illusion. You are not a finished product. You are a process. Your body is a process. And so is your mind. And in addition to all that, so is your sense of self. All these three aspects of you are processes. If these three are processes, what that means is there are causes and conditions that must continuously align themselves to give this result. But then why does your sense of self defy that? Why does your sense of self make you think that you are nothing like that and that you are this unique entity? That's the word for it. An entity. An entity is something that is done. So when you want to start up a business, for example, you have to register your business with the registrar of companies. Yes. So once you register yourself with the registrar of companies, you become a legal entity. It's an entity. So once you're a legal entity, you have this feeling like, okay, that's it, we are done now. I'm there, we are there. The business is now there. It's there. Now everyone recognizes that I'm a business or that this is a business. And now I can interact with my business. Customers can interact with my business. Other suppliers can interact with my business. Other entities can interact with this entity. So entities interact with each other. This is the feeling that we have. And it is these entities to which we attribute an identity. See, you are even fortunate to have with you an identity card. What does that card tell you? It tells you that you are unique, does it not? When you go to the bank, you have to prove that you are allowed to make withdrawals from a particular account. What must you prove? Your identity. If you want to travel past our borders or enter our borders, what must you do? Prove your identity. What does that mean? Prove that you are who you say you are. In other words, prove that you are you. What does that mean when someone says, prove that you are you? It means you are not someone else. That statement, in and of itself, is founded on the principle that we are all unique, is it not? Don't you feel that your sense of self is very unique and very different and separate to the person sat next to you? I mean, surely they must have a different self. I'm a different self. That self is a different self to myself. That's why we say himself, herself, themselves, ourselves, and myself. or when yourself. Do you ever feel that the way you feel about yourself is exactly how the person sat next to you feels about themselves? Does that thought ever cross your mind? It's very difficult to actually even think of it like that. Like the way you feel about yourself, the I-ness, not highness, although you might like me to refer to you as that. This I-ness that we feel, ourself, right? Does it ever cross your mind that the person sat next to you, any random person, feels it in exactly the same way? We always feel that, no, they have a very different self to me. They are unique in a very different way. They are very, they are they and I am I. And therefore we have to interact and engage with each other. Do you remember one of these talks, either the last one or the one before that, I suggested to you that winning and losing makes no sense. Although we live in a competitive world, and we have created competition amongst ourselves, to live in a competitive world makes zero sense, ladies and gentlemen, if you can understand the concept that I'm trying to share with you. The only reason we have this sense of competition, call it the Olympics or in the classroom, right? And anywhere in between these two ends. Even among siblings, there's competition. Between parents, there's competition. He said Amma first. No, he said Tati first. Mothers in the house, what do you like your child's first words to be? You like it so much that when you hold the child and you know that he or she's trying to put something out, Amma, Amma. He doesn't know what he has to say. It makes no sense. He's like, what's this woman trying to say? And when the child says, Amma, you feel like, why my child just called me a mother. You're over the moon when you hear that, right? What if he calls you Nanda? That you find offensive. You're hurt. So if you're the father, would it not put you on cloud 9 if your child's first words were Tata? Huh? If those were their first words. So imagine the mother and the father stood beside each other, the child's there in the cot, and you're trying to get it to say out loud its first word. There's a silent competition. It's a silent competition. We call it a silent war. This is an innate feeling that we have, ladies and gentlemen. The reason to be, the need to be superior, the need to be recognized, the need to be acknowledged, the need for our identity to be acknowledged. That's how I would put it. You have an innate need for your identity to be acknowledged because you're working incredibly hard to fabricate it. Of course, when a child puts a painting together and takes it to their parent, right? What do you want the parent to do? What does the child want the parent to do? Look at it, appreciate it. Say, wow, how did you do that? It's wonderful. In the same way, when we work so incredibly hard to fabricate our sense of self, what's the one thing you want others to do? Appreciate it. Recognize it for what it is. Acknowledge all this hard work that you've put in to create it. That's why loneliness can be such a desperation. Because when you're lonely, there's no one to acknowledge you. Something that typically comes with old age. Why does it come with old age? It's not biological. It's social. Because the older you get, the less you become important, or you are important in people's lives, because you're not as agile as you used to be. You can't get about just as much as you used to, like you used to. You're not as interesting as you used to. You don't have a friend count on your Facebook. No one's interested. You don't talk about the interesting stuff that's interesting nowadays. So people will slowly but surely sever that connection that you have with them. You just become an old coin. It has an antique value, but no currency. So this is waiting to happen for all of us. What can we do about this? And this is all anchored around this conversation. What can we do about this? This curse of loneliness that awaits us all. Now, if governments and non-governmental organizations, people who try and do something, people who care about other people, the things that they do is they set up old people's homes, they organize certain events for the elderly, right? And they sometimes visit them in their homes, they spend time with them, talk to them, right? Try and engage them in activities and create activities, organize activities that are still within their power, their ability, to make them feel valued. I mean, all that is good and well, but the problem is you become dependent on someone else, on someone else's sympathy. Why wait for someone else's sympathy? Why wait until you are dependent on someone else's mercy? You will become dependent on someone else's sympathy, ladies and gentlemen, if right now you have apathy. If right now you care not about what it is you have to do for yourself. For as long as you have this sense of self, remember, it's like the drawing. The child worked incredibly hard to do it up and then brings it to an adult, a parent, a teacher. And if they get no appreciation for it, no recognition for it, how does the child feel? You have been parents, you have been children to know exactly what I'm talking about. When your hard work is not recognized, when it's not acknowledged, when it's not given due recognition, how does that make you feel? Deflated, disappointed, indeed, undermined. Right? And then what do children generally tend to do? They try to put up a fuss, a drama, to try and grab attention. I remember watching a documentary a while ago when the late President John F. Kennedy was assassinated. They carried out an investigation as to what happened and who it was and all that. So in the end, they identified that the criminal who had committed this assassination was someone who was feeling very lonely. They did it for recognition. Because they wanted America to talk about them. Him. He was a gentleman. He wanted America to talk about him. Because no one recognized him. No one acknowledged him for who he was. And there comes a point where this becomes psychotic. I have worked in an old people's home to know that this is real. This is the real deal. This is not just a theory. I have seen it happen to people and how people go crazy. That's because this curse, this ailment that you have, the constant fabrication of a self, if you don't seize that before it's too late, ladies and gentlemen, then not all the money in the world, Not all the wealth, not all your property, not everything and anything you have earned so far will give you any respite. That's why I said, apathy will lead you to be dependent on someone's sympathy. Therefore, it's crucial that we understand this and work on ourselves now. I'm trying to save you from whom? From yourself. That is what true freedom is. True freedom is not freedom from someone else or something else. It's not to free oneself from prison. It's to free oneself from oneself. That's why, may I ask you who your worst enemy is? Who is your best friend? Again, the same answer. So you live with your closest ally as well as your worst enemy. So where is the war? Within, indeed. The war is within. That's why last week I encouraged you not to waste your time fighting other people's battles. Because you have a much more poignant war going on, and that's happening within you right now. If you don't win that battle, when that day comes, right? And it doesn't even have to be death. Old age will kill you sooner than death. What's the point if someone's alive, but in their mind they've gone insane? What's the point? What's the value of that life? They don't know what they're saying, they don't know where they're going, they don't know what they're asking for, they don't know who they're talking to, they're just talking into mid-air, speaking as if there's someone else in the room, making no sense. Have you not seen people like this? If you haven't, then wait. We can't wish away these problems. We have to wash them. And the Dhamma is the detergent. Your practice is the effort that you have to make to rub your mind with the Dhamma and cleanse it of its defilements. All you have to do for this is to have merit and pay attention when the truth is being told. Because your understanding of this is all that you need to do. If you understand this concept, if you get your heads around it, and there comes a moment where it clicks, not mere understanding, but it becomes comprehension. And then it becomes internalization. At that point, ladies and gentlemen, you will understand that this sense of self is merely a sense of self, and it is not you at all. That's the day you fall out of love with yourself. It is also the day that you truly begin to love yourself. How can they both be true at the same time? Is a question that's probably crossed your mind right now. How can that be the day that you fall out of love with yourself and also be the day that you truly fall in love with yourself? Because when you disintegrate this sense of self, you realize what is really there, and that is just a thought, a chitta. To truly love oneself is to free oneself from your sense of self. Let's talk about the consequences of living with this sense of self. And I've just drawn them on the board. Put your hand up if you have no regrets about the past. And no fears of the future. There's one word that describes someone who has no regrets of the past and no fears of the future. That is an arahant. I'm not one. And that is because an arahant understands that there are events that happen in a particular sequence. They know that before you put this cap back on, it has to come off. They know that this has to happen in a particular sequence, that this happens first and then this happens. So this is step number 1 and this is step number 2. They know that before you can stand up, you have to be sat down. They know that. They're not fools. Things in life, they take a certain sequence. When I move this fan this way, I have to do that before I can move it back. Right? So this is a simple example to help you understand the point. I have to move this forward before I can move it back. If it's back, can I move it back again? No, first I have to move it forward. Right? Sequence of events is a real thing. It's there. But what's not there then? What's the illusion? Here's the illusion. The illusion is that it is the same object that's moving back and forth. That this object is an entity. This object that was in this position is the object that is now in this position. That is an illusion. Once again, to think that there is no sequence to events is nonsense. Because let's be honest, if this is forward, I can't move it forward again. I mean, I could, but there's only so far I can go. But you know what I mean by to move it back and forth, it has to move in that sequence, right? I can't move it back and back and back and forth. It has to be back and forth. How does a pendulum swing? To and fro. It's not to and to and to, or fro and fro and fro. It's to and fro. So there's a particular sequence in which things happen. See if you can try and get your head around this. It's a subtle point. If you get it, then today is the day. Things happen in a given sequence. That's fine, there's nothing wrong with that. The problem is, it's an illusion to think that there's a particular object or an entity that goes from one state to another. Therefore, there's a constant thing that transitions from one state to another. To think that is an illusion. That is the delusion here. Things happened, ladies and gentlemen, yesterday. The only problem here is that you think it was to you those things happened. So there's a timeless being. Isn't that how you feel about yourself? What happened yesterday to whom? What does your instinct tell you? To me. Slowly, as I try to explain the Dhamma, you'll begin to understand, okay, I see now, it cannot be me to whom these things happen, because I am not an entity that is done. It's a constant process. So if something's a constant process, a process produces something in this moment, but for the next moment, those causes have to realign and produce something else. Those two things might be similar, but they're not the same. To be similar is not to be the same. Two friends walk into a showroom and they buy 2 cars, or a car each. They're from the same make, same model, same manufacturing line, same batch, right? Are they the same car or are they similar cars? Similar cars. So you understand that about 2 different objects, right? Right. Come back now, this pen. I have a pen in my hand. Okay? Now you'll tell me immediately that these are different things because one is black and the other is blue. But imagine that this was also black. Would you say that these two are the same? Are they the same? No. Not because this is blue. I want you to assume that this was black, right? and of the same make, the same model, the same batch, right? Still, you would say that these two are not the same, but they be similar. That much we are okay with, right? Okay. This pen is a pen. What about this pen? What does your intuition tell you? Sorry, your instinct. What does your instinct tell you? It's the same pen. That's the problem. There lies the problem. Now you're probably scratching your head wondering, did I just walk into the wrong room or something this morning? Is it me or is it Swaminathan who's just lost his marbles? I mean, I got it as far as when he picked up 2 pens and he asked, is this the same or are they similar? I got the point, right? They're similar, not the same. But he took 1 pen in his hand, raised it up, pulled it back down, put it back up again, and now he's asking me, is it the same or similar? And I say same, and he says it's not. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not the same pen. Why is this not the same pen? Because it's not a pen, it's a pen being. It's not a pen full stop. This is present continuous. This is not the simple present. But English teachers will disagree. When I say I'm a human being, what tense is that? The simple present. But it's not. It's not. This is the present continuous. See, it's there in the word. It's an ing verb. A human being is being human. It's being human. It's not done human. It's not is human. It's not was human. It's being human. Then the pen? It's being pen. So if this is being pen, it's being pen right now. Now, that's another pen. It's being pen now. The effect of being a pen is only valid in this moment. Let me repeat that. The effect of this being pen. What's with it today? The effect of this being a pen is only valid in this moment. The moment I start to speak of this pen being valid only in this moment, it's already a different pen. So what is the past of this pen? What is the past of this pen? This one. Of course, we can't time travel into the past, but we can travel into the future, can't we? We just have to wait. When we wait, we travel into the future, right? Surely. Okay. So this pen now, where's the future of that? Now. Because we just traveled in time, right? This is the future of what was a moment ago. Was it? But what does your instinct tell you? That this is the truth. Now that is the delusion. This is an event, this is another event, this is another event. And I'm sorry for keep doing this. I'll stop doing that because I want to try and give you the impression that it's a different one. But when I do that, you think, okay, so it's another time, another time, and another time. No, okay, I'll keep my hand stationary. Here's another pen, here's another pen, here's another pen, here's another pen, and here's another pen. Not same, but similar. But your mind does not understand that they are similar. Why does the mind not understand that they are similar? Why does the mind think that they are the same pen? Not they are the same pen. It is the same pen. Why does the mind think that it is the same pen? Because of your sense of self. That feeling that you just had, when I asked you, is this the same pen? And you went, yes. Now, right now your words disagree with your perceptions. Is this the same pen? as this, I know you're lying to me right now. I know you're lying to me right now. Well, how do I know that you're lying to me right now? Because you're not speaking the truth. You're telling me what you understand, but you're not telling me what you actually perceive within you. Your perceptions are at odds with what you're saying right now. You know what you have to say because you've just heard the sermon. But your internals tell you, no, that's the same pen. How many times can you get into the same river? See, that's easy to get your head around because you know the water's flowing. Okay. How many times can you get into the same lake? Now that's a different story, because in a lake, the water is still. See, the way you look at a river is different to the way you look at a lake. But they're both wrong. The river doesn't change, and the lake isn't constant. There's nothing there to change. Because change is a function of time on an entity. You know how do you say? You meet an old friend from school. Those days they used to be really good pals, right? They were very friendly. Whenever you needed some help, they would be the first ones to come forward and support you, help you, lend you something that you needed, right? You meet them, you give them a call and say, Machan, I need some help. Right? I'm in dire straits right now. Can you help me out? And they go, well, things are a bit difficult on my side. It's this and that and that. I'm married now, man. It's difficult now. Right? So then you say, okay, it's fine. So you put the phone down, and then what do you tell your people? People change. Times change. You do it with that face on. That's why I'm. You don't go, times change and people change. You don't do that, do you? You go, times change, people change. Garbage. Because it comes from within, with emotion you say it, with compulsion you say it. You feel it. People change, these people. They don't remember how I used to help. How I was always there for them when they needed me. I wouldn't bat an eyelid when they asked me for help. I was always there for him. I was behind him like his shadow when we were at school. Those times when he used to get into brawls and fights and all sorts. When his girlfriend dumped him, I was the one who was there to give him a boost of confidence and to find him another one. How ungrateful of him to forget me like this. Times change, people change. All the while not realizing that everything you're saying is a complete lie. It's a complete fabrication. Makes no sense at all. But, no one prompts you to think any differently. That's because everyone is blind. How can the blind lead the blind? This is the problem that we have. We're in a world where everyone's blind. Blinded by delusion. Blinded by ignorance. So how could the blind lead the blind? This is why you need to understand, ladies and gentlemen, why we speak so highly of the Buddha. Why the Buddha is our only resort, our only refuge. Why the Dhamma is the only refuge, why the Sangha is the only refuge. We take refuge in the Noble Triple Gem, we always say that. But you have to do it with meaning and purpose. Understand why the Buddha, Dhamma and the Sangha are the only refuge. Otherwise you're just chanting a stanza like a parrot. It makes no little sense. How can the blind lead the blind? So no one ever questioned it when you said, these things that happened to me in those days, back in those days. Remember those stories that you always have around the table, dinner table, friends meet up, back in those days. Back in the olden days. When we were younger, we used to go to school together. We used to hang around together. We used to have a crush on the same girl. Remember how you talk with your friends about these things? How we used to play on the, in the fields and run on the beaches and enjoy ourselves, and how you are reminiscent of those olden times. We've all done that. When you take a photo album, what do? Why do you have photo albums? Let's get that first. We'll talk about that first. Why do you keep photo albums? When I used to be a layperson, I also had a photo album, right? So it's fine that you have one now. But only when I used to be a layperson. I sold that cow. Someone bought it. I used to have a photo album. And in my photo album, there were memories that I wanted to hold on to. Memories of whom? Fond memories. Fond memories. Because I wanted to reminisce them. Share them with my friends and keep slices of my life forever into the future, so that when I was older, I could look at them and talk about them and enjoy them, just watching them, and show it to my children, the children I never even had back then. But I was saving them up so that I could one day show it to my children. See, I was living on this, I was riding this timeline, toing and froing on this. Collecting memories from the past and preserving them for the future. Does it not make you feel happy when you are reminded of a past event in your life that you enjoyed? Does it not make you happy? Shame on you. Why do I say that? Shame on you. Exactly. Because you're happy about it because you're deluded now. The event happened, yes, I agree. But there was no you in that. It was just an event. You are not the actor there. It's like the script's changed, but the actor remains. Isn't that how you feel life goes on? Now that's how actors work, right? The same actor, right? They get on the stage and perform various scripts. On one fine day, he's the father of the family. The other day, he's a son. On one day, he's the hero, and the other day, he's the villain. Isn't that why you get confused sometimes when you watch these teledramas? I thought he was a good guy. Why is he being beaten up right now? I don't know whether these are all wives' tales, but I've heard how sometimes when these actors, they walk on the streets, they've got to be really careful with these achiyammas. They come and then sometimes attack them. How dare you did that to that girl? She was such an innocent girl. Not realizing that he was only acting. See, we laugh at that. We laugh at that situation because we realize that this poor Achiyamma, she doesn't realize, Achiyamma's grandmother, she doesn't realize that he was only an actor. She's taken it, like, she's actually living the drama. We laugh at her. So you're okay then? With your halos over your heads. So this is okay then, is it? To have your photo albums, that's okay. So when you're fraying these events in your life, you take those snapshots, when you take video footage of it, and you want to preserve it for the future. At that moment, as well as the moment at which you take it out and look at it and reminisce in those old memories, right? And enjoy that sentimental value that you attribute to these things, right? In both of these moments, ladies and gentlemen, you are in delusion. And the reason for that is your instincts keep telling you, that is me, that is me, that is certainly me. Look at all those things that I used to do. Now, I remember when I used to work at the care home, there were many who used to speak about their achievements from their younger days. There were some who used to fight in the war and used to talk about that, how they used to save lives and how they were in the battlefront, on the battlefield. And used to talk about their heroic stories of how they used to conduct themselves. And so, what do you think I was expected to do at that moment? Be surprised and be amazed, right? And, raise my eyebrows and go, wow, you did that? It's amazing. And that's what I genuinely did back then, because I had no understanding of the Dhamma, as I do today. But if I met such a man today, I would still do the same. But today, not with my blindfold on, I would do it out of compassion, knowing fully well that this man is blind. He's blinded by his ignorance. He thinks that it was his life today he speaks of, that it was he who was there back then when it happened, and today he speaks about all those victorious and marvelous things that he used to do, and he wants recognition for that. Therefore I give it. I listen to him, and then I try, with a bit of luck, if he has some merits, to try and convince him that that was not him. Which is what I'm doing with you right now. So whatever it is you're proud of from your past, and the things that you regret, you're ashamed of, none of these things are yours. Those were mere events that happened at that time because there were causes and conditions that aligned. And when those causes and conditions aligned to manifest a particular event, here's another event that happened at the same time. Your sense of self. Not your sense of self. The sense of self that manifested at that time, manifested at that time. The sense of self that manifests at this time, manifests at this time. Then we are left with the question, why do I then feel that it was I who did that? Why don't I feel that about someone else? Why don't I feel that someone else's past was my past? Why is it always my past I feel is my past? The reason for that is memory. Memory fills in the gap there. To the deluded mind, memory does all sorts of crazy and wonderful things. It makes you think, because of course you're still thinking that it was you. That bit you do on your own. You don't need memory for that. So even if there was someone who lost his or her memory, dementia. So even if that were to happen to you, your sense of self will still manifest. Because the sense of self does not require sanity or to be able-minded or to be fully aware of what's going on, to have access to memory. None of those things are required for you to have a sense of self. All you need for a sense of self is a chitta, a mind, and ignorance. So can you imagine how a person who loses his or her memory must feel like? Just imagine that. Now, remember I spoke to you a few moments ago about how you feel isolated and lonely when you get older because there's no one to recognize you and acknowledge your doings, your achievements. But, even when no one else is around, you still have yourself, right? You can remind yourself about the things that you used to do and still be proud of yourself. No one cares about the things I used to do, but I was like this. You might say, dear diary. And then you write your diary. And then people write their autobiographies. Sometimes they write it in the hope that one day it might get published. No one reads this, but they'll still write it anyway because writing their autobiography helps them feel valid and relevant. Because the book listens to you. And besides, you can read it again. So when you read it, you are reminded of it. That's why these thank you cards, these things, they do wonders to help people feel better. Do them. You mustn't stop. Whenever you can acknowledge someone for something good they have done for you, do it. But don't expect it. This is not to ask you to stop doing anything. These talks are to help you to stop expecting things. I would not be happy with you if you stopped sending thank you cards to the people who've helped you, supported you. But I would also not be happy with you if you remained someone who expected them. Don't expect them. Thank whom? For what? It was not you who did it. Why should I thank you? Let's assume you bring me a cup of water. And then you go and sit back down in the audience. After having listened to this, you want me to ask you to come back here and say, thank you, madam. After having listened to this, you want me to send you a Christmas card for bringing me the water? Was it you who brought it? See, this question of was it me or was it someone else, they're both wrong. That's why your thinking must come out of this dilemma. It's neither this nor that. It's not you and it's not you. Because when you say it's not you, that suggests that it must be someone else, which is also wrong. That didn't make a whole lot of sense, did it? I can see it in your faces. It's fine. I love this. When your faces talk to me, that's why this sermon would be incredibly difficult to do if you had those lights switched off. Because if I can't read your faces, then I would not be able to give this talk. Because this talk is also very dynamic. It responds to your input. If I had come here with a prepared speech, I could do a TED talk. Get on a stage, you can hardly see your audience. It doesn't matter because you have a prepared speech and you do it and you get off the stage and everyone gives you an ovation. Here I don't get any ovations either. When was the last time you clapped when I finished my performance? I don't even get an ovation. No, don't do it after the sermon today. It's a different custom, isn't it? It's like when we had the event at the monastery, this language event, when most of you were there. At the beginning of the program, we had to tell everyone that you don't have to clap because it's not customary in our tradition to clap as a demonstration of your joy or appreciation. You can just either nod in silence or just bring your palms together as a mark of appreciation. Different traditions, that's all. Now, in some audiences, I give a talk, especially if they are unfamiliar with this, they clap. I have not had a whistle so far. But I've had applauses. That has happened. So what do you think I do then? Do I look at them and give them the evil eye? Say, how dare you clap? I'm a Swaminathan, sir. No. That is their way of doing the sadhukara. That is their way of doing sadhukara. This is your way of doing it. It's just a different tradition, different culture, that's all. As long as people have got something out of it and they're happy about it, then that's all that matters. Now, where were we? How did we get to the clap? The what? Read our minds, yes, thank you. So it's wonderful that I can read your mind, so let your faces communicate with me. Okay? So when I ask you a question, you don't have to spit it out. You don't have to verbally express your answer. I can see that you have an answer in your face. Sometimes a nod is very helpful when you understand something. This is also very helpful. When you don't understand something, this is also very helpful. There's only one thing that's not very helpful, this. Pretty much everything else is very helpful. So, I'm leveraging your facial reactions to help guide me on this talk, right? Anyway, back to our topic. What did we talk about before that? What are we talking about? Not you? Yes, thank you, yes. I don't know how that went into this, but anyway, it's not you and it's not you, yes. Okay. So how is it? Because I said it and then I read that people were a bit lost, so I was commenting on that. Thank you. Reel back. How is it not you and not you? How is it not you and not you? I don't think I need to draw this. I can simply ask you. Sometimes when the police interrogate suspects, there's such a thing called evasive answers. You don't have to commit. You can give evasive answers. So let's say you know who's committed a particular crime, and they ask you, was it you? No. Was it not you? So the answer to that would be? That's the point. See? If you say, no, it's not me, then you're suggesting that there was someone else who did it. That it wasn't just an unfortunate natural coincidence, right? You're suggesting that there was actually someone else who was responsible for the crime, but it wasn't me. Someone else, did you do that? No, it wasn't me. You're suggesting that it was someone else. It's raining outside. Let's assume it's raining outside. And I ask you, is it you who's raining? As in not you who's falling from the sky, but is it you who's responsible for that? Is it you who made it rain? You say, no. Is it someone else? See, when I ask you that question, is it someone else? And if you replied, no. No, wait. If you replied yes to that, question, is it someone else? Then you're suggesting that someone else is responsible for the rain. But is someone else responsible for the rain? Because is there someone responsible for raining? No. Raining is a natural process. No one's responsible for that. No individual can take that responsibility, neither can you, nor can anyone else. So when we ask the question, then this question was asked to the Buddha. Venerable Sir, is this me? And the Buddha says, what? He doesn't say no. He says, you're asking the wrong question. Then they ask a follow-up question. They say, is it someone else? Again the Buddha says, you're still asking the wrong question. Then is it neither me nor someone else? Again the Buddha says, you're still asking the wrong question. Is it both me and someone else? Then again the Buddha says, you're still asking the wrong question. Why are they the wrong questions? Because, ladies and gentlemen, in each of these questions, you're looking for an answer which identifies an individual who's responsible. You're looking to identify an individual. Meaning, you're basing this question on the premise that an individual exists. Who is that individual? Is what you're really asking. So the moment you ask who, you already lost the plot. This is one of the most erroneous and dangerous questions that we have in our vocabulary. Who? And it's a perfect question because, that question should really sound like that as well. Who? When you say who? When you want to shame someone, right? And if someone does something embarrassing. So this is the perfect sound for that word. Because the very question is based on a fundamental flaw in your thinking. Your cognitive phantom. You're trying to give an identity to this cognitive phantom. What you're trying to determine then is, who is it that I have in my mind? Who is this phantom? Little do you realize that it's a phantom in the first place. Therefore, the question should never be who, but how. It must always be how. So you see someone's spill some water. Take an everyday example. Someone spills some water on the floor. What is usually the first question that comes to mind? Who spilled the water? Then you ask everyone who come, crosses your path, did you do it? Who spilled the water? No, wasn't me. Someone else walks up. Did you spill the water? No, wasn't me. This must happen at home all the time, right? Something breaks, something that's precious to you. What do? Now you have to find out who the culprit is, so that you can spread compassion and practice forgiving. Yeah? Or you can ask for compensation. See the whole legal system? What is it based on? The presence of whose. Because it's about how we interact with each other. What are the rules? What is the playbook that we must use in our interactions with the whos that we have here? Do they realize that these are all fabrications of the mind? No. We exist, so therefore let us now ensure that we exist in a legal framework. And if we don't like the way someone else behaves, then we litigate. We take legal action. Without realizing that you can't really sue the same person that committed the crime. Why is that? Because this pen is not this pen. This pen is not this pen. Then which pen is this? Wrong question again. Because you can't say which pen this is, because if you ask which pen this is, then you must still be able to point at a time in the past or in the future or some other place and say that pen is this pen. There can never be another one of these. Never again, never before. That's it. This is the idea of Pachuppanna. Please remember, and not remember, but try and understand, I'm not talking about present. Because the moment you start talking about the present, you immediately project a future and you recall a past. This is not talking about temporal present, but rather talking about the presence of causes and conditions. We've spoken about this before. This manifests because causes and conditions are present. Present is the opposite of absent. Not present as in the opposite of the past or the future. It's just such a shame that it's the same word, but have different meanings. So I have to use that word in the hope that you understand what it is I mean when I say this pen is a manifestation of causes that are present. Not past or future, but the opposite of absent. It's there. Because causes and conditions are there, this is there. What about this pen then? Because causes and conditions are there now, not now, but now, this is there. Now. These are momentary. That's why it's wrong to ask whether it was you or not you. Because when you reply with not me, that suggests that it was another person. So the water spillage, right? Every time you say, no, it wasn't me, you're suggesting that it's not me, but it might be someone else. Whereas the answer should really be, you're asking the wrong question. So then, children, when you're back home and you play ball and the ball hits the vase, your mother's favorite one at that, or some ornament, and it breaks, and your mother comes and asks, was it you? What should be your answer? You're asking the wrong question. I suggest you stand at arm's length before you. Just a little bit further than arm's length, right, before you reply with that. And as soon as you say that, turn around and run. Because I am not responsible for the consequences that shall follow. But why do we go around, walking around the house, trying to figure out who was it that did it? Because we feel that there are doers in this game, don't we? So you see, now the vase broke. Okay, the ornament, whatever, it broke. That is an event of the past. But the problem is this. Don't you feel that there's someone right now who's responsible for the event in the past? Isn't that the person you're trying to find now? How could someone who is in the present be responsible for something that happened in the past? If it happened in the past, it must be someone who was present at that time. So if you want to find the culprit of that action, then you'll have to time travel into the past and then find the person who did that. Do you see how flawed this thinking is? So when they say, no, it wasn't me, they're always right. They're always right. They may not be telling the truth, but they're right nonetheless. To be speaking the truth and to be right are not always one and the same. Isn't it? Sometimes you think something is wrong, but you think it's right, and then you speak a falsehood. Right? It's like, today is Sunday, that's a fact, but you think today is Saturday, and then someone asks you, hey, what are you doing here? Oh, sorry, I thought it was Sunday. I mean, that's right, but you thought it was Saturday. Then to say that it was Sunday, that is a falsehood, isn't it? You've uttered a falsehood. In your conscience, you know that was a falsehood. But it just happened to be that you were right, not necessarily truthful. So that's another matter. But you see, the vase, it broke in the past. Now you are looking for a culprit in the present. Who was it that did that? How can someone who did something in the past be present in the present? How can they be there in the present? You're looking for the person in the wrong time. You'll have to go back into the past and find them. But what does your mind tell you? What does your instinct tell you? There must be someone here who's responsible for that. Yeah? And then you walk around trying to find them, so that you can punish them. Now here comes the bigger danger. The vase that broke was only a vase. Okay? But you're trying to find a person, a mind, a human being. And then you want to try and criminalize them. Incriminate them for something that they actually never did. Now who's committing the sin? Do you get my point? So the vase is broken. All they did was break a vase. When? At that time. Right now you have a different set of circumstances, different environment, different causes. Therefore, if it was your little one who broke the vase at that point, now you have a little one here. Is this the same person? Not same, but similar. But your mind, your ignorant mind does not understand this. This is why ignorance is such a curse. Your ignorant mind does not understand that the only relationship that these two things have with each other is similarity, not sameness. Where the only relationship between these two things is similarity, your ignorant mind tells you, no, it's the same person. But is this the person who broke the vase? No, but the moment you grab hold of this person, right? Whether they accept it or not, you might check the CCTV cameras if you have one. Maybe you'll walk around trying to gather evidence. Ask the brother who hates this one anyway. And then he'll be coming up with all sorts of alibis to try and convince you, no, it wasn't. I wasn't there. I was playing with this, that, then I was playing with the dog. You go and ask the dog. What the dog? No. So the dog tells the other dog that it was this one. In the end, you end up sentencing this innocent individual for a crime that they never committed. The biggest sin of all, the biggest crime of all, is to convict an innocent individual of a crime that they had never done. So the moment you say, you are the one who broke, remember the universe is listening to you as you pass this sentence to them. And then you don't stop at that. You punish them. You say, on your knees. It's punishment. No screen time. No playtime. Why? Punishment. You don't do it out of compassion. It's not out of love, not out of mercy, not out of loving kindness. None of that. This is now punishment time. Because you're angry. Why are you angry? Because they did what? They broke the vase. Whose vase? My vase. How did that become my vase? I have an even better question for you. When did that become my vase? Back then or now? Think carefully and answer. When did that vase, the vase that's now broken, become your vase? Back then or now? Now. Why is it now, not back then? Because now is when the sense of self is created in. This is the most important point for you to take away from this talk, ladies and gentlemen. There is no done self. You can't bite off a shelf and say, right, that's it for me. I'm going to live with this self for the rest of my life. It's not how it works. It's not ready-made. It's a constant activity of generation. Instance after instance, you have to keep on generating your sense of self. That there would have been a sense of self there as well. Absolutely. That was when you put the vase on the stool or on the table. There was a sense of self, but that sense of self is not this sense of self. Therefore, that sense of self, which claimed this to be their possession, is not this sense of self. This is an old one, this is another one. Now, this sense of self uses memory clouded with ignorance. The moment you cloud memory with ignorance, you're done for. This is what doesn't happen in the mind of the Arahant. They don't lose their memory. So they can remember things very well. They don't all of a sudden have some kind of memory loss at the moment they become an Arahant. They will remember just as much as they did, if not even better, and have a clearer memory once they become an Arahant, because the mind is now free from all defilements. So nothing clouds their memory, least of all a sense of self. Therefore, when memories are drawn from their memory bank, that is not polluted, contaminated with a sense of self that keeps on retelling them, this was your memory. From yesterday, from the day before yesterday, from last week. That's what happens to you right now. That's why you have regrets. That's why you have sorrows. That's why you're looking for the person who broke your vase. There's a memory of a vase, but a sense of self now, a sense of self now, which connects with your memory of the vase and says, that is my vase. And I ask you, when did you buy it? 3 weeks ago I bought it. Buying happened. You happens now. I bought it. Actually, that sentence is perfect. What is the past tense of I? What is the future tense of I? It's just I, right? I. So I is always I. So I bought it. Bought is true. That happened in the past. But I, that happens now. So the buying happened, and now I happens. Not happened. I happens. As I happens, a memory of a buying, therefore bought, comes into contact with this. Therefore, I bought. The future tense of buy is will buy. But I, no. Therefore, will buy of the future connects with the I of the presence, and the two of these connect, and then you say, I will buy. Why do I say that I is always present? Because I is always present, that's why. No other reason. There is nothing of your I that goes into memory. That can be withdrawn from memory, pulled back from memory. Right? This sense of self, there are no remnants of it that go into memory. You can't reserve it in memory. You can't keep it safe in memory. Neither can you put it into the future. You can't project it into the future. That was the story from last week. Remember, we drew two boxes. One box was the past. The other was the future. And we did a bit of an experiment that day. We'll do it again today. Ready? I'm going to tell you about something that happened to you in the past. Ready yourself? Prepare yourself for that. Now, I haven't told you what it is. I've just said I'm going to tell you about something that happened to you in the past. I'm now priming you for it. Aren't I? I'm saying, hey, get ready for it. I'm going to tell you about something that happened to you in the past. Attention on me. I'm going to tell you about something that happened to you in the past. You already opened this box now. This box is now open. You're waiting for me to put something into it. See? Sense it, you can sense it right now. I'll start the sentence off. Do you remember last week? Now your box is open. Last Sunday, just after the sermon, see, your box is now open. Your box is now open, waiting for me to put something into it. And then if I said, no, scrap that. Today, after the sermon, you've just opened a different box now. Right now this box is open. It's called the future box. You felt something happen within your mind, didn't you? The box opening. I know you didn't feel like it was a box that was physically opening, but didn't I prime you for it? Didn't you feel like, there was something, it's not like when you were thinking about the present. Like if I said, look at this, you don't have the same feeling. But again I say, yesterday, now there's something that's going on in your mind and you can feel it. We all sense it. This is that feeling that Rahatan Mahasayas don't have. They don't have this feeling. It's almost impossible to imagine how you could be without that feeling. That's Rahatan Mahasayas for you. But this box opens now, waiting for me to put something into it. Take this pen then. This pen yesterday, the moment I say that, you know that it's not this pen because it's not right now, because right now this is the present. But you have a mental image of what this must have been like yesterday or last week when you saw it here. Now this box is immediately occupied by not this pen, but a version of this pen or a impression of this pen, a mental impression of this pen. Still, nonetheless, don't you still feel, does your instinct not tell you that it is the same object that I'm referring to, only from last week? And then if I said, the fortunate one here is going to walk away with this pen today. I'm going to give this as a gift to one of you. Now the future box opens and this pen is in that box. Right? This is a very precious pen because we have used it to describe the Dhamma. It's very meritorious. This pen and the one who will eventually come of possession of this pen is going to be very fortunate. So I'm going to give this to one of you, the lucky one. Now your box is open, waiting to receive this pen. This was the pen that was here last week. It's here now, and in the future it will be. You can imagine this in your living room or on your desk. If you have a room where you do your work, your office at home, just imagine, I'm sure you have a pen holder somewhere. Imagine this in that pen holder. Can't you do that in your mind? You can, right? Place this in your pen holder. Place this in your pocket. Can't you do that? Place this in your handbag. Now, until you get home, you're going to have to put this in your car. Okay? Place this in the glove box. Gone? Haven't you just done that? Is it not this very pen that you imagine in your glove box? It's the same pen, isn't it? But the truth is what? It's only a similar pen, not the same pen. But what does your instinct tell you? Swaminivas is going to give me his pen and I'm going to carry it with both my hands like this. And I'm going to put it in my glove box. And then I'm going to take it home. And I'm going to put it on my table. Into my pen holder. You are all talking about this pen. If this pen is not that pen a moment ago, how can you walk away with my pen? They're only similar, but they're not the same. But why do you still feel that they're the same? Because there's a sameness process. There's a process that runs in your mind, ladies and gentlemen, that generates a feeling of sameness. Is that even a word? I often make words up because you give me the liberty to do so, like poderizations when it's drizzling outside, and drustifications, which is what we do every Sunday. Is sameness a word? Sameness? It's not a word? What's the word for? It's same. But ness of same? Sameness? Sameness? Sameness it is. Sameness going once. Sameness going twice. Gone. Sameness. This is the present box. Woohoo! There's a word. Present. Right now this pen is in this box. If I ask you to imagine this on your work desk at home, you can do, can't you? Can't you? Everyone, you can do that. You are able to do that. It's an ability that you have. It's called imagination. But when you imagine, don't you imagine this very pen on your desk? It's not a similar pen, right? You imagine this pen, the same pen. That is the problem. You might wonder, how can that be a problem, Swaminivas? Isn't that such an innocent, harmless thing to do? How is that a problem? there's only one thing that is an even bigger problem than that, and that is not realizing that there is a problem. There's only one thing worse than being in prison, right? What's that? If you didn't know that you were in prison. If you didn't know that you were in prison, would you ever try to break free or break out? No. You'd live there until your death. What's worse than being blind? Not knowing that you're blind. Imagine someone's born with some defect, visual defect, which could be corrected. Right? Just imagine this situation. It could be corrected. If you went to a surgeon, they could fix it and restore your eyesight. Just imagine that. But what if you were born not knowing this and you were blind? But only because the procedure has not been performed. Don't you think that's a pretty sad situation to be in? Yeah? So, what do we think about being a pruthakjana then? Not knowing that there's a way out of it. But there's a surgeon who can do it for you. They can help you break out free from your state of being a pruthakjana, but you are, by definition, a pruthakjana is someone who doesn't know that they are a pruthakjana. So there's no need or desire or any internal compulsion to come out of it. I mean, you've heard people say, no, we are pruthakjanas, no. People they say that, but they don't really know what a pruthakjana is. Actually, people don't, these people who say that, they're just pruthakjanas, they don't know what it is to be a pruthakjana. Does a blind man who's born blind know that they're blind? Only those who have sight know what it means to be blind. Because you can shut your eyes and block out any sense of light, and then you can get an idea of what it must be like to be blind. But if you are born blind, then you would not know what it is to be blind. In the same way, a pruthakjana who says, I'm just a pruthakjana, they don't really know what it means to be a pruthakjana. Because if they knew, why would they remain one? Wouldn't they come out of it? So to know who a pruthakjana is, you must first become an Aryan. Only a Sotapanna knows what it means to actually be a pruthakjana. They understand what it means to be pruthakjana. The pruthakjana experiences pruthakjana-ness. Just invented that again. The pruthakjana experiences it. The Sotapanna does not experience it. But they know it, they understand it. When the Buddha is asked, what does it mean to understand something? He explains very beautifully. To understand something is to understand what it is, how it comes into being, how it ceases, and what is the path to its cessation. When you understand it in this fourfold way, that is to understand something. Do you understand time? Yes, it's on my watch. No. No. That's not time. Because if I asked you, how do you seize time? Well, you put your finger so that the dials don't turn. You take out the battery and then time stops, does it? No. You see, to say that you actually understand time, you must be able to say what time is, how it comes into being, how it can cease, and what is the path to its cessation. That's when you can claim to have understood time. What is love? The same principles apply. To claim that you understand love, you must know what it is, how it comes into being, how it ceases, and what is the path to its cessation. That is when one can say that they understand love. Just because you say that you feel love from someone or someone loves you, this is just a word. You might feel an emotion that you think is love, but if you don't know its cause and how it can be ceased and what is the path to its cessation, that is not you having understood love. So to really say that you and claim that you understand something, you must be able to explain it and describe it in this fourfold manner. That is to truly understand something. Sampajanni. To truly understand something. This pen last week. Your words will now defy your perceptions. Was this the same pen last week? Tell me something you don't agree with. You will tell me, no, it wasn't Swaminathan, this was not the same pen, because it was only a similar pen. But your instinct tells you it was the same pen. Your instinct tells you it was the same pen. But can it be the same pen? This is the next question. This is the important question after that. Can it be the same pen? Can it? Why can it not be the same pen? Because it was a different pen. Was it? No, it's neither the same nor not the same. Because the moment you say it was a different pen, then again that suggests that there was another pen, it's just not this one. That is wrong as well. It was not another pen. Just because it's not this pen doesn't mean it was another pen. It was not another pen. That was not this. That's not true either. This pen, now let's think about last week, right? So I want you to do this with me now. For those of you who were here, you can remember this pen from last week. For those of you who weren't here, you can imagine this pen from last week. Okay? Whichever way you do this, whether you were here or not, when I say this pen from last week, those who were here last week will pull on a memory from last week. But does that memory actually come from last week? Does that memory come from last week? Does the memory come from last week? No. It's a present day manifestation. Memories are formed in the present. Let me put it in a slightly less confusing way. Your impression of a memory. Forget what I just said a moment ago about memories formed in the present, because that can be confusing. Think about this. When I talk to you about something that happened to you in the past, a mental image will form in your mind. But that image is not an image that you pull on from the past. It's not something that was there in the past that you bring into the present. That's not how it works. You're actually manifesting it right now. So, when I say this pen from last week, what happens is actually your mind creates a mental image of this pen, right? It happens in 3 stages. Okay, it creates a mental image of this pen. It then creates a box By box I mean, let's call it a vijnana, a sentiment. It's a sentiment or a notion, a perception of a past. Okay? It creates a perception of a past. It creates a mental image of a pen in the present, and then those are the first two stages. And then the third stage is it puts this into that box. It aggregates this feeling with this feeling. The two things are added together. When they add together, the cumulative effect of that is your perception that this is actually a memory from the past. Let's do that again. Let's do that again. Let's use the candle then, shall we? This poor candle has been sitting here, wondering when it's going to be used. Right. So right now, this candle is what candle? Is an unlit candle. So let's put that into a box. Okay, so we have 3 times the past, present, and the future. Okay, let's talk about this candle. So in the present day, at this present moment, here we have an unlit candle. Okay? You know what I'm going to do with this now, don't you? What am I going to do with it? How do you know so sure? How do you speak with such certainty that I'm going to do it? Knowing the party pooper that I am, I'm going to light this candle. Right? When am I going to light this candle? Now. No, now it's an unlit candle. I can't light this now, can I? Now, I'm having a conversation with you right now. Okay, as I ask this question, okay, now that we're having this question live, this is the now present moment. This candle is what? Right, so what's the candle now? Which candle? What's the candle now? Gone. The candle is unlit, right? What are we going to do to this candle? We're going to light it, right? Now, I want you to be now, here, present, right? When am I going to light this candle? Which box? Future. Future. So right now, you have a lit candle in the future box, don't you? Don't you? Yes. But is the candle lit? So how did you do that? Have you ever seen that candle lit? That particular candle, have you ever seen it lit? No. You might say, but you brought it, Swaminathan, about 3 months ago. No, that's a different candle, not this one. Now, if this was a brand new candle, you would not argue with me at all on that fact. Right? If it was a brand new candle, you would have no basis to argue with me that it was the same candle that I brought 6 months ago, whatever. So have you ever seen that candle lit? No. But when I say I'm going to light this candle up, did you not already create this box and then put a lit candle into that box? Have you ever seen it lit? Then how did you do that? That's what you call imagination. That's your imagination. So here's my question then. Okay? Did that lit candle that you put into the future box come from the future? Did it come to you from the future? No. Then where did it come from? At which point did you create it? Present. So you've never seen this candle lit. Therefore, this candle, the lit candle that you have put into the future box, could not have come from the future, could it? You know what's even worse? Can't you honestly imagine this candle from yesterday. Just imagine this lit, but from yesterday. Can, right? In fact, you're going to be doing it in a moment. Because I'm going to light this candle, and then I'm going to talk to you about the unlit candle. And I'm going to ask you, where did that come from? So where is the lit candle coming from? Are you pulling it from the future? No, because you've never seen this lit before. Therefore, that cannot be coming from the future. Could it be coming from the past? Have you ever seen it lit? No, therefore it cannot be coming from the past. I mean, you've never seen this lit, therefore it obviously cannot come from the future, but it certainly cannot come from the past either because you've never seen it lit. Therefore, this future state of this candle is something that you are creating right now. Let's just say, I'm going to promise you that I'm not going to light this for the next 10 minutes. Okay? Imagine 5 minutes into the future for a second. I promise you I'm not going to light this for the next 10 minutes. Fine? Okay. Now imagine 5 minutes into the future. Not 10, but 5 minutes into the future. So here's my promise. For the next 10 minutes, I'm not going to light this. Now imagine how many minutes into the future? 5 minutes into the future. Can't you? You can. Now, it's not going to be lit, right? So what is this candle then in 5 minutes in the future? Unlit. Have you seen this candle in 5 minutes? So how did you do that? Again, your imagination. You've got to ask yourself, how is it you're doing all this? These amazing things. How is your mind doing all this? 3 stages. 1, you have to create the box. You first make the box. Then you get a mental impression of the candle. Because you've seen the candle. You've also seen lit candles. Not this particular one, but you've seen lit candles. So you can imagine what it might look like when it's lit. And then you don't stop there. What you do is you add these 2 pieces together, leaving you with the mental image of what the future might look like. So we are going to light this now. Okay? Now remember what it looks like. We're going to light it now. Did you finish this? Okay, now you have a lit candle. What's there now? Just a lit candle. Okay? What was there in the past? The unlit candle. Which candle was it that was unlit? This one, right? This one was unlit in the past. Picture that in your mind. If it helps, I'll do this. Don't look at this. This is not what I want you to have as the object of your consciousness right now. I want you to think about the unlit candle. The state that this candle was in, or so you say, but in the past. Don't you have a mental image of that? Right, what's going on? You're creating the past in your mind. And then you have an image of an unlit candle. That comes from memory. Just because it comes from memory doesn't mean it leaves you with the impression that it happened in the past. Just because you have an image of this in your memory, so this is the memory of an unlit candle, okay? Just because you can pull on a memory from the past and you put it into this box, that process alone, now listen very carefully and attentively, doing this alone would not give you the impression that it was this candle that was unlit in the past. I'll repeat that. Just pulling an impression from memory, a fragment of memory, and your understanding of the fact that this was a past event alone would not leave you with the mental impression that it was this candle that was lit in the past. There's something else that needs to happen in addition to that process. That something else is your sense of self. Because it is your sense of self that stitches these things into a timeline. Because if you exist, then surely other things in this world also exist. Because when you exist, you use yourself as reference for everything else. One is called Jati, the other is called Jati Dhamma. So I want you to clearly understand and distinguish between these two things that are going on right now. One is this. As you look at this lit candle, ladies and gentlemen, and I ask you to imagine the unlit candle, right? The unlit candle, you're doing this right now, aren't you? Isn't this happening? Can't you stop doing this? I mean, you can. If I say, think of an apple, right? Now you're not doing that. So that's a process. Okay, that's also a process. But then I ask you to do it again, and again you're doing it now. So this process is going on. But in addition to what I have asked you to do, you're also doing something else without my permission. I never asked you to do that, but you're doing it anyway. What is that you're doing anyway without my permission? You're creating a sense of self. And what is that doing to you as a result of that? It's giving you the impression that it is this candle that you are having a past memory of. Because you think this is the same candle from before. Sameness comes into existence. Because you believe in existence. This is the reason. You believe in existence. It is your doctrine. It's your philosophy. You believe in existence. There's one word for existence. It's called Mara. That's why you all are Mara Minissu. But honestly, joking aside, that's what Mara means. To fabricate existence. It's not existence, it's the fabrication of existence. That is why the opposite of Mara is Buddha. The cessation of the fabrication of existence, not existence. Why is it not existence? Why do I make that point? Because there is no such thing called existence. Only the mere perception of it. So for as long as you experience, and more than experience, actually believe in an existence, whose disciples are you? And then you call yourself Dharmishta Rajagiriyas. Buddha, the definition of Buddha is cessation or freedom from the perception of existence. The definition of Mara is the prolonging or the continuance of the perception of existence. The continuation of the perception of existence is the fabrication of existence, and put it very simply. See, this candle existed and has been existing and will continue to exist. Does your instinct not tell you that? In fact, it's not your instinct that tells you that. It's the Mara within you. Because that Mara is also a process. You have a Mara process in you. Now it's difficult for you to distinguish that from the Sinhala word Mara. Because that we use for big things, right? Or impressive things, we say Mara. In fact, the reason we use this word in Sinhalese, Mara, is to distinguish things from one another. Special. I say that was Mara, yeah? What do you mean by that? He's Yana, Mara, yeah? What do you mean by that? Special, right? What does special mean? Distinguished. Separate. A distinguished entity. So actually it's not he who is Mara. Ya Mara ineme. It's not he is Mara. Mara happens within you. Because there's a Mara process that runs in your mind, which I'm trying so vehemently to seize and replace with the Buddha process. This is called the Kusala process. The Kusala process is the inverse of the Mara process. Even ping, merit, is also part of the Mara process. Demerit is also part of the Mara process. Both merit and demerit are parts of the Mara process. Kusala, now that is the inverse of the Mara process. Merit and demerit are opposites of each other. Kusala is not the opposite of either of these two things, it's the inverse of it. Do you understand the difference between an opposite and an inverse? The inverse undoes something. The opposite is the flip side of something. So, multiplication is the inverse of division. And division is the inverse of multiplication. They're not opposites. It undoes what one has done. Was it last week we talked about this? That the universe is the inverse of yourself. You feel isolated from the universe, don't you? Isolated in the sense you are distinguished from the universe. What does this Dhamma do to you? Indeed, it makes you one with the universe. Therefore, the universe is the inverse of yourself. And you are the inverse of the universe. Because you are one verse. And there are multiverses. But the truth is, it's just a universe. So each of you are inverses of the truth. That's why you exist. You are the inverse of the truth. But Kusal is the inverse of you. Therefore, when you allow Kusal to happen, Kusal is not mere merit. It's the cleansing of a defiled mind. Remember I said, use detergent, the Dhamma as a detergent, and use it to cleanse your mind. As you do merit, it becomes easier. So you can think of merit as the water in which you dissolve the detergent of Dhamma. So you can't use the Dhamma in its purest form. Can you? The detergent washing powder. What do you need to dissolve it in? Water. The more water you have, the better the detergent dissolves in it. And the easier it becomes to wash your dirty linen. So, ping or merit is like the water. The more water you have, the easier this job becomes. Don't you like that analogy? Yeah, so take it with you. But when you start running out of ping or merit, then that's akin to running out of water. And I come here and I give you soap powder. Bags and bags and bags and heaps full of it. But if you have no water, then you can hardly do anything with it. You can't wash your dirty linen, in other words, your mind that is defiled, without merit. That's why, like Guru Hamra explained yesterday, our mission is twofold. One is merit, the other is kusala. To encourage mankind to engage in as many meritorious deeds as possible, and to encourage mankind to use that merit for kusala. But without the Buddha's teachings, you do not know what good use to put merits to. And then what happens? We just consume our pre-committed merits to live what they say are comfortable lives. This is what you Colombians used to do. Until Gateway to Nibbāna happened. And this is not what you used to do on a Sunday morning, was it? It was a day of relaxation. And then sometimes you might have even gone and listened to some sermons here and there, but without a proper understanding, it's no one's fault. You can't point your finger at anyone and say, why did that Swami Nwaze not give the Dhamma to me? I went to this many meditation programs, that many sermons, that many lectures, why come no one gave me the Dhamma? The simple answer is, you just didn't have the merits to hear the truth. How come I spent more than 20 years of my life without the Dhamma? It's no one's fault, no one is to point a finger at. All I can say is, I just didn't have the merits to come across him. And one fine day I did. That's when I realized that I can't just wash my clothes with detergent powder. I need water. So, henceforth, I've been filling my bucket up with water and the powder that my teachers give me. That's why both these things are important in Zen. That's why I said, two important factors when you come here. You have to pay attention, because attention is what helps you to understand the Dhamma. But you must come here with ping, merit, pubbeta kata punyata. That is why we have created opportunities like Pinketa, which I spoke to you about a couple of weeks ago, to cultivate the field of merit, which is the Sambuddhasasana. To give up in the name of Nibbāna, your energy, your knowledge, your wisdom, your know-how. For those of you who don't have the time to spare any of that, if you have had time to earn in the past because you are looking forward to a better future, what future? There's something I really want you to remember, ladies and gentlemen. A wrong idea that I used to hold. I thought that what I save I can take with me. That is wrong. Only what I spend can I take with me. What do you think about that? Whatever you save, the bank takes with them. Whatever you spend. Because what do you do when you spend? You convert cash to sight, sound, smell, taste and touch. That's what you do when you spend, right? Can you consume money in the form that it is? Cash, can you consume it? Do you take great joy in taking a $100 bill and keep it? You have some kind of fascination to like do that with money? No, right? What do you tend to do? You spend it. You spend it on a nice dress. You spend it on a nice meal. You spend it on an outing with your friends. You go to a concert. These are things that you used to do. Maybe sometimes still do. But cash in its form as cash is of no use to you. Because what do you do with it? Those days they used to stick it under the pillow. Our grandmothers used to stick it in their hat, in their blouses. And nowadays you stick it in the bank. And what do the bankers do? They know the trick. I used to be a banker. So I know the trick. I figured it out. I used to, I'll speak in the present tense for better effect, so you know what's really going on. We take your hard-earned cash and we make more money out of it, because we have to do that, because in case you ask for your money, we have to give it back to you. Right? So we make more money out of it, and then you know what we do with it? We spend it. Look at the lifestyle that bankers spend. Do you ever see them living lives like you? Saving everything in the bank? No, bankers don't save. They spend. Whose cash? Whose money do they spend? Your money. They spend poor people's money. Because when you get a lot of poor people together, you have a lot of money. All you need to give them is a sense of assurance. Don't you worry, when you want it, we'll give it back to you. Because they live in fear. Fear of the future. What if? What if the sky falls on my head? What if? You live in a world of what ifs. Therefore, you're struggling to earn some cash and put it in the bank. Right? And when a lot of poor people, by poor I mean anyone who's not a billionaire. So you're all poor. Is that okay? Sorry for any billionaires in the house. So by those terms, I'm also a poor man. So what do the bankers do? They take the money of the poor people and they put it into their coffers, and then they keep a portion of it that is regulated. You have to keep a portion of it in case your lenders want the money back, so you can return it. And then they make more money out of it, and they don't just put it in the bank. They go and buy a yacht with it. They buy a jet with it. They buy a nice house with it. They go golf with it. They go enjoying themselves. And then you look at these lifestyles that the bankers live and you go, look at what they do with our money. And then bankers earn a reputation for being dirty bankers, because they somehow seem to be living off of your hard-earned money. It's not their fault that you've got it all wrong. It's not their fault that you got it all wrong. Take it from a banker. Bankers don't save, we spend. Because we understand that the only things we can enjoy are sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch. And that doesn't come in bills or in coins. It comes from the shops. It comes from the outings. It comes from the music that we listen to. It comes from the films that we see. It comes from spending time with our friends and family. Spending. Spending is how we enjoy. Sounds completely at odds with what you've always learned, right? About saving. But that is what they want to put into your heads, so that you will continue to save, so that they can enjoy the fruits of your hard labor. The same principle applies when it comes to merit as well. What's the point of having merits stored up somewhere? Assume you have lots and lots and lots and lots of merits in some merit bank somewhere, which you don't use. What's the point? What good is merit to you that you don't experience, that you don't enjoy, that doesn't come to fruition? That's why do your merits and come back here on a Sunday morning. Because this is where you reap what you sow. And here's something I would like to share with you. Before you die, you all know when that's going to happen. Therefore, rest in peace for now. I mean, not rest in peace for now. Relax for now. Before you die, right? Before you die, I encourage you to spend every penny that you have earned. Take it from a banker. I studied money. I studied it a lot. I mastered the art of money before I mastered the art of life. Now I have mastered these two disciplines. I put the two together and it makes a lot of sense. Before you die, spend every penny that you have saved. Because whatever you have saved in your accounts is going to be of no use to you. But if you spend it, at least you will enjoy it while you are still alive. If you don't spend it on yourself, then you will be spending it so that you can get its return in your afterlife. Whether it is in this life or the afterlife, you will only enjoy the benefits of what you have spent, not what you have saved. Is saving a ping? Saving money, is that one of the Dasa Punya Kriya? Is it one of the 10 meritorious deeds? Saving money. What's the first one in the 10 meritorious deeds? Dana. Not Tyaganima, right? Dana, right? What's dana? Charity, generosity. Both in this life and the afterlife, ladies and gentlemen. This is the point I want to get across to you. Both in this life and the afterlife. In lives to come, you will only experience the benefit of what you have spent. Prove me wrong if you can. Keep putting money into the bank and see whether you're going to live a better life. Go on. And watch the bankers do what they do. That's why they encourage you. But they pay you a pittance, don't they? It's nothing compared to what they can make out of it because they understand money and you don't. So in school, they don't teach you about money. They teach you about currency. They don't teach you money. I remember at school, we have used these books, textbooks, they had pictures of $1,000 rupee note, 500 rupee note, 200 rupee notes, 100 rupee note, and said, this is the national currency of Sri Lanka. These are the coins. We learnt about currency. We learnt about cash. We didn't learn about money. Those lessons don't go into the textbooks because if they did, the system won't exist like this. So the few at the top, the bankers like the few at the top, we are there to make use of the many at the bottom who live in constant fear because they live with sorrows of their past and scared and afraid about what might happen to them in the future, and therefore they keep saving their cash into these bankers' pockets and they live off of that. I'm not suggesting that you must have a nest egg for when something goes wrong. That you need to have that. But if you're saving for the future mindlessly, I suggest to you to rethink your strategy. That's all. I don't want a penny of any of it. This is only life advice. But prove me wrong if you can. Have you ever enjoyed a penny that you have saved? You can look at your bank balance and be happy about it. Perhaps that you do it habitually every morning. Log into your online bank. Another zero at the end of that. Yes, that's me. Where is the bankers going? What a fool this man is. Just give him another 0.25%. Give him another 0.25%. Look at the rates on the savings. your FDs and whatnot. You really think it's there it's there designed to help you succeed? to help you make a fortune out of it? You think that's how they devise these interest rates? Look at the interest rate and work out how much interest they have in you. Anyway, I digress. But the truth is the truth nonetheless. But please remember this and walk away with this. You can only enjoy what you have spent, not what you have saved. If you have your parents alive, spend on them. Honestly, spend on them. That's how you earn a fortune. By spending on the right things, you earn a fortune. You want to know how to earn a fortune? Spend on the right things. Don't be greedy. Don't be stingy. Don't be penny wise and pound foolish. Anyway, that's a bonus lesson from an ex-banker. This is how this monk sold his Ferrari. Candle. Still burning. So you still remember the unlit candle? That unlit candle comes from memory into this box. You create this box. Now, let's be honest, let's be clear. An arahant understands the concept of the past. He understands the past as a concept. Right? So if you asked him what was yesterday, he will tell you it was Saturday. If you ask him what is tomorrow, he will tell you it's Monday. He understands the past and the future. But here's what he doesn't sense. He doesn't sense that yesterday was today's past. He also doesn't sense that tomorrow is today's future. But this is what we do. When you look at this candle, and I talk to you about the unlit candle, you can't help yourself from thinking that that unlit candle was this candle before I lit it. Don't you feel that way? That is because your sense of self. Because of a sense of self. It's the same sense of self that tells you it was you who lived yesterday. And all the things that you did yesterday were things that you did. Therefore, you have regrets of the past and sorrows of the past. Because, now I'm going to put this candle out. This future you imagined before I did it. So you had a future box in which you had unlit just before I put out that candle. You had an unlit candle in that box. You know, right now you think this is the candle you thought about a moment ago. In your mind you're thinking right now, wait, let me light this back again. Right, now think about the future of this candle. What is the future of this candle? Unlit, right? Yeah? So I'm going to light it, put it out now. This is the future of which candle? Put the Dhamma to a side. Let's be ignorant for a while, for once. Of this candle, right? That's the one we were talking about. That's the one we were talking about, weren't we? That's what your ignorant mind tells you. This is the one that Swami Wahanse asked me about a couple of moments ago. Whereas it's not. That future that you imagine is not this candle, ladies and gentlemen. Because that was a manifestation at that present moment. This is a manifestation at this present moment. These two things are not same, only similar. Things are similar when they demonstrate similar characteristics. Characteristics are what are similar. No, wrong grammar. Characteristics are what is similar. Entities are what is same. Thank you. I finally found the words to explain the concept. You are a wonderful audience. I'll repeat that. Please get it into your heads. Characteristics are what is similar. Entities are what is same. Are there such things called entities? Do entities exist? Therefore, sameness is only a hallucination. It's a cognitive phantom. But don't characteristics exist? Oh yes, they do. Characteristics exist. Shall I name some? Sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, weight, height. These are characteristics, not of an object. Characteristics. Characteristics exist. Forgive me for using the word exist, but characteristics are for real. They're there, characteristics are there. Therefore, you can compare characteristics. When you compare characteristics, that's when you say these two things are similar. But the problem is, even when you say these two things, you're already talking about what? Entities. So you can't even talk about characteristics because you've already failed the test by saying these are two entities of which I'm comparing the characteristics. This is how ill-founded our logic is, because we were completely thrown astray. We had false indoctrinations, one after the other, infiltrating our minds. Nicca sukha attha gave us a sense of existence, and now through that lens of existence we look at everything. Even when you say two things are similar or different, you're still talking about entities. The truth is, ladies and gentlemen, there is nothing here more than the characteristics. I don't hold a pen. What's in my hand are a bunch of characteristics. These characteristics we bundle up and we give it a name. But that's all to it. It's just a name for a bunch of characteristics. But we go a step further because of our ignorance and we say that name must be a name for an entity. That's where we get it wrong. What is a chair? How do you know that something's a chair? Take a chair. How do you know something's a chair? Characteristics. It must be solid. Describe a chair. Solid. Has a flat surface. Typically has an upright surface. Right? 4 legs. Now, what have you just been describing? Characteristics. You describe these characteristics and then you say that which has or possesses these characteristics we call a chair. There's nothing wrong with giving a single name to describe a bunch of characteristics, but the problem is our ignorance tells us that actually these characteristics belong to an object. Don't you see that happening? We think that it is an object that displays characteristics. when the truth is, it's just the characteristics. Describe water to me. That which you drink. You might say that which you drink. What is that? What have you just described? That which you drink, meaning it's drinkable. What does that mean? Is that an object or a characteristic? Characteristic. Then you'll say, heat it to 100 degrees centigrade and it will evaporate. What did you just describe? A characteristic. Then you'll say, it's 2 hydrogen atoms and an oxygen atom. What have you just described? Characteristics. So all you do is describe characteristics. Then what is water? It's just a name. Water is just a name for a bunch of characteristics. Characteristics you can compare because they are similar or dissimilar. Aren't they? Characteristics are either similar or dissimilar. But these are the only words you can use with characteristics. But the moment you start talking about entities or objects, now you start saying they're either the same or different. Where's the object once you've taken out all the characteristics? Why do you call this a pen? Is it because it's a pen or because it writes? It's because it writes. If it didn't write, why don't you call this a pen? Honestly, tell me, why don't you call this a pen? Is it because it's not a pen? Why do you not call this a pen? Because it's not a pen, Swami. Is that the reason? No, you don't call this a pen because it doesn't write. Why don't you call this a duster? Because it doesn't wipe. Not because this is not a pen, not because this is a pen, or because this is not a duster. You don't call this a duster, not because it's not a duster. Hello? You don't call this a duster. You don't call this a duster because it's not a duster. In other words, the reason you don't call this a duster is not because it's not a duster. Yeah? It's not because it's not a duster. It's because it doesn't wipe. That's why it's not called a duster. So, how do we define an object? The problem is you say by its characteristics. But that's where you're wrong. Not by its characteristics. What's characteristics are you talking about? By the characteristics. By characteristics. That's how you define an object. So is it right to say that my mother is very kind? My mother is very kind. Is it right to say that? No, because she's not, right? Why is that wrong? Why am I challenging you on that statement? My mother is very kind. Why am I challenging you on that statement? Because there is no mother there to be kind. Kindness is one of the characteristics there. There will be a whole bunch of other characteristics. How do you know when you see your mother that is her? Do you have some kind of mother receptor on you? You go t. Is that how you know that's mother? No. What do you assess? Characteristics. Because she looks like something. She looks like her. She sounds like her. She feels like her. She talks like her. She moves like her. She expresses emotions like her. See, all of these things are what? Characteristics. So then, is there a mother there in addition to the characteristics? I ask you, is there something there in addition to the characteristics? Then all there is what? a bunch of characteristics. That's why it's called a kaya. A kaya is an aggregation, a collection of what, ladies and gentlemen? Characteristics. Then point at an object for me, will you? Point at an object for me. Can you? No. What is an object? Do you remember studying the definition of an object? Something that occupies space, has weight, and is made of some substance, has a mass. Right? This is how we defined an object, right? So we remember we studied an object at rest, an object in motion. Remember, for physics and math, we used to do these sums and work things out. So what is an object? It is something that demonstrates characteristics of occupying space. So if something doesn't occupy space, is it an object? No, then what is an object? The occupation of space is an astronaut. Not that occupation. The occupation, meaning the taking up of space, is, we have to say, an object. These definite articles, they're just a whole bunch of trouble. These definitive articles, the candle, a candle, because it gives us this impression that there are objects in this world and we interact with them because we are also an object. That is your identity. Can you come to terms with this principle that I have just explained to you? That all there is in this universe, even that sentence is wrong. I might as well stop there. Because I said in this universe. Once again, when I say the universe, what are you thinking of? Some kind of massive entity of which we are all just particles and, constituent elements, right? But you see, you can't help yourself from feeling that way. Why can't you help yourself from feeling that way? That is the entitification process that's happening within you right now. Your sense of self elevates you from a mere bunch of characteristics to an actual individual. But when your friend describes you to someone else, how do they describe you? Through your what? Characteristics. When you want to introduce yourself to someone, how do you introduce yourself? You give your name, you give your age, you give your address, you give your whatever, you describe yourself, your occupation. These are all characteristics. Once you said all that, do you also give yourself? What is left after that? What is the cell? That is the smallest particle that you are. The smallest biologically intact organism is a cell. What is a cell? It's a bunch of characteristics. Once you take out the characteristics of the cell, what remains? The cell. But don't you feel that in addition to the ability to wipe, there's also a duster here? Doesn't your instinct tell you that? In addition to the ability to wipe, there's also a duster here. Isn't that why you construct sentences? The duster can wipe. Or the duster wipes. No, the duster doesn't wipe. Wipes. This is the ability to wipe. That's what this is. You say the pen writes. The pen writes is what you say. Now the pen doesn't write. Writability. This is writability. But instead of having a bunch of descriptions, writability, lockability, closability, standability, foldability, lay on the table ability, put in the pocket ability. So instead of I'm killing English, aren't I? Murdering the language. Forgive me, English teachers. Whatever gets the point across. I don't care. So instead of all these abilities for convenience, we come up with a convention. Conventions are for convenience. If you don't stop there, your ignorance tells you that a convention is an absolute reality. And that is why the Buddha had to outline these are conventional truths and these are absolute truths. To an ignorant bunch of people that we are, the Buddha had to come out and say, all these things that you think are absolute realities are mere conventional realities. Use them, but only for convenience. Live with them, but only for convenience. But bear in your mind that the truth is, these are only conventional truths. They're not absolute truths. So all there are is characteristics. Does that make sense to you all? Do you understand, before we conclude, that whenever we talk about, say now this is an unlit candle, before I blew it out, I asked you to imagine the unlit candle before I blew it out. And then your instinct tells you right now that this was the candle that Swami Nwanse wanted us to imagine just a few moments ago, but they are not the same. Similarity is all there is, not sameness. If sameness doesn't exist, can difference exist? Can difference exist? No. Then, back to practical questions. When you got on that poruwa with your beloved fiancé or fiancée, did you not look her or him in the eye and promise them a life long with them? Didn't you say, till death do us part, we shall live together forever? Didn't you get off the poruwa with the same person you got onto it with? But was it the same person? Did you get off the poruwa with the same person you got onto it with? No, right? No. You got off it with a similar person. That was a similar person, not the same person. So then when they change their demeanor, when they change their conduct, when they change their attitude towards you, why does that bother you? Why are you bothered by that? Because you expect. Why do you expect? You expect because in this world you see that there are entities that must remain the same. And then there are entities that you want to change. That's why, you work on someone and you think, right, I can change him. I'll work on him and I'm sure he'll change over time. She'll change over time. And when they don't change, that disappoints you as well. Does it not? Some, when they change, that disappoints you. Others, when they don't change, that disappoints you. Right? But why are you disappointed by these experiences of change and no change? Because of your expectation. Expectation of what? What is his expectation based on? The notion that there are entities in this world and they will remain the same, or they will not remain the same and they will change. Do you see that they are both based in flawed ideologies? So whose fault is it when you're upset? Whose fault is it when you're disappointed? If you have understood this lesson, I ask you, maybe if now for the 100th time, don't you ever point your finger at someone else and fault them for your dissatisfactions and your unhappiness in life. They never promised to be sane. You created that in your mind. They never promised to change. You created that in your mind. You then set expectations for change or for difference. That's not their fault. Your ignorance cannot be your excuse. Does that make sense? My ask of you is that you contemplate on this stuff, not just here but outside these four walls. When you're here, as a teacher, all I can do is pull the bow back or the string back. The traveling forward, you have to do on your own. That will usually happen outside of these four walls. When you're at home, at the workplace, on the streets, among friends, at the party, wherever you find yourself. I can give you oomph. I can give you energy. I can give you motivation. I can give you clarity. But driving yourself forward, that is something only you can do, ladies and gentlemen. It helps to be in the presence of those who are also driving themselves forward, which is why noble association is incredibly useful and almost indispensable. Now I see that there are some among you who come here with your families. You are so incredibly privileged to be in that position, I must say. I know there are some among you who are planning to do that at some point in the future. May you be able to do that very soon. But for those who have that privilege, it is not a privilege whose value can actually be expressed in words. You have no idea how much merit you must have done to have a family, to have friends, to have people around you who are supportive of your journey. That's why I count myself among the luckiest people on the planet, to be amongst people who are constantly, relentlessly on this journey of self-liberation. But do remember that all I can do is pull the string back. You are the arrow. The bow doesn't travel with the arrow. You know that, right? Because the bow has to remain for the next arrow. So once the string has been pulled and let go, then it's all up to the arrow how far it goes, where it lands, whether it hits any obstructions or falls flat or gets lost. Then there are headless arrows. Those are just too keen. Be keen, but don't be too keen. There's an element of moderation that we must all have. Even I, as a monk, if I don't let my teacher moderate me, then I become too keen. If I become keener than my teacher, then it's time that I find another teacher or become my own teacher. Sometimes it's difficult because it's ego versus ego, isn't it? Sometimes when the ego finds appeal in Nibbāna and thinks that is the now purpose of my life and that is what I need to do, sometimes it tries to make a drama out of Nibbāna itself. Because everything is a drama to the ego. Life is a drama to the ego. We just talked about it. This is a drama. The candle is a drama. It had a past, it has a future, it has a script. Whereas it doesn't. This candle has no script. It's only pachupan, no scripts. But the ego is an actor, so it always likes to play out a drama, a script. I'm not suggesting that any of you are like this, but these are those white lines you have on the road that remind your cars, the drivers, not to veer out of the lane, right? So these are those white lines that I will draw from time to time and remind you that on this road, you need to travel with caution. It's a safe road because there are people traveling ahead of you. Don't worry, it's a safe road. But the safest roads can also be dangerous to an unsafe driver. Have you not seen accidents on the safest roads in the world? There you go. And unfortunately, Nibbāna is not something we've done before. You can't become a Sotapanna twice. If you're trying to do it right now, that's because you've never done it before. Therefore, we have no prior experience of it. We are unseasoned travelers on this path. That's why I encourage you, do your merit, because your merit will always take you to the right teacher. One question that people often ask, how do you know that the teacher you have found is the right one? Unfortunately, that's not a question that I can come up with my own answers to. That I have to let nature decide. Have I found the right teacher? Is Guru Hamdra the right teacher for me? I don't know. All I know is I need to keep on doing merits. If he's not the right teacher for me, then, and if I keep on doing merits, then I will end up with the right teacher. If I don't do merits and I end up losing him, then at that point where I have depleted my merits, then that is the right teacher that I will find at that point. It is always consummate with the amount of merit that you have. The teacher, the opportunities, the privileges that you encounter in life. It is always consummate with the amount of merit you have. Your karmic balance is what it all tips on. I thought I should say this to you because I noticed what you did just a moment ago. As Swamin Wahanse left the room, you stood up. As he returned, you stood up again. Not everyone does that. I have seen audiences where they don't do that. It's not necessarily because they are bad, but they just don't have the drushti. They don't understand that with us and amongst us we have the Buddha, Dhamma and the Sangha. You cannot show me respect by standing up, because there's no me to show respect to. But here's what happens when you do demonstrate or display a mark of respect. It earns you merits. That is why I say people don't have this drushti. They don't have that association. They don't have a community. Very seldom, sometimes we travel and give talks outside the monastery. And on some occasions we see audiences that have no understanding at all of who Swamin Wahanse is and why we should show some respect. Remember, it's not to the monk, it's to monkhood. There's a difference, right? There's a parent and there's parenthood. There's a father and there's fatherhood. Monkhood never dies. The monk dies. As monks, we all strive for monkhood and to reach the absolute pinnacle of that. That is timeless. That will be there forever. So even as you show your mark of respect, when you offer alms to the Swamin Wahanse, don't make it a private offering. As much as you can, make that offering to the Mahasangha, which is a bunch of characteristics. The Mahasangha is a bunch of characteristics. See, Supatipanno. Bhagavato Savaka Sangha. What is Supatipanno? Don't worry about the meaning of Supatipanno. What is Supatipanno? It's a characteristic. So what is Ujupatipanno? It's a characteristic. We call them the qualities of the Mahasangha, right? Bhagava, Arahang, Samma Sambuddha, Vijjacharana Sampanna, Sugata, Lokavidu. These are all characteristics. So what is Buddha? It's a collection of characteristics. The noblest of characteristics, when you put them together, that collection is called Buddha. So what are we doing right now by discussing the Dhamma and sharing the Dhamma and instilling these values in our minds? We are developing and cultivating those characteristics. You were born human because you had human characteristics. One day when you have the characteristic of an arahant, you will not be born again. Because those characteristics are the inverse of rebirth. Buddha, not Mara. That's what we're doing right now. We are cultivating those characteristics. But I wanted to congratulate you on those qualities that you demonstrate, because it earns you merits. Not because I'm not saying that you have shown me respect how good you are. It's not that. You don't need to show me any respect, because there's no me to show respect to, and I understand that. But as we do that, as I get down on my knees and I worship the Buddha, it's not the statue that I worship. When you offer a drink, when you offer gilampasa, when you offer dane, right? These are all things that we do to earn merits. Yes, merit is also a Mara dharma, but this is ego versus ego. That's the thing. The more merits you do, this is the water in the bucket. Remember? But once you've washed your clothes, do you need water after that? Once you've fully washed your clothes with the detergent, and then you use the water to rinse the soap. After that, what do? You take the cloth and you squeeze the water out of it as well, don't you? And then you put it out to dry, to get rid of the last bit of water. But can you do that at the beginning? While it's still dirty? No. To go from dirty to not dirty to dry, first you must get wet. That is the medium of travel. So you need to be wet to get from dirty to clean. But once you're clean, you don't need the water again. So once you're all arahants, you need not do any of these merits anymore. But until such time, you, I, we need those merits. That is why I said we came up with this concept of Pinketa. And I think most of you have now registered on that. Some have even come and asked, Swaminathan, how come you haven't told us about any activities going on at the monastery? But it's because we don't have activities going on all of the time. When there's some kind of new initiative or there's some project that you can get involved in, we will most certainly let you know. The daily activities we have at the monastery, you are already part and parcel of that. We feed over 1,000 mouths every day. We teach almost 300 students every day, by the weekends. Then we give people a comfortable space to come and practice the Dhamma. You're already part and parcel of that. There are many among you who offer the first and foremost of your earnings. That you have been doing it as a practice for many, sometimes many months, even years now. It's not the quantity, it's the thought. When you offer the first and foremost of something, what do you get back? The first and foremost of something. That's when sometimes you go places, people always greet you. Sometimes you're in an audience, but they come up to you and you realize, I'm not even like the main person here. How come people are coming and talking to me? That's because you have offered the first and foremost of whatever it is. Be that your earnings, be that your food. Let me share with you one last thing before I conclude. This is a practice I used to have when I was a lay person. To this day we do this as monks, but even as a lay person I adopted this and it has done me no... What's the phrase? It has done me no short of... I can't remember it. I was going to say it and I can't remember. It has done me a great deal of good. Right? Whenever I used to eat at home, we used to have the little Buddha Patra. So this was when in the UK we started this. So back then I just found a dish, something like this. When we came back to Sri Lanka, I bought a little Buddha Patra. A small alms bowl. Not the big ones that we use, but a small one. And then whenever I had my meals at home, I always took the first part of that and put it into the alms bowl and laid it by the Buddha statue. It was not to the stone statue, It was not to that. It was for Buddhahood. The offering was made. Always the first and foremost. I never ate at home. From the day I started this, we never ate at home without setting aside the first and foremost portion of whatever it is that we had to eat. Whether that was a drink, sometimes, if it was a snack or just a main meal, it was always offered to the Buddha first. If it was past 12, then what I used to do is take a small part of it, put it to a side, maybe leave it in the fridge. The following morning, when we offer alms, take that and offer it. If you can start doing that, ladies and gentlemen, I'll tell you, it'll do you what? It'll do you a great deal of good. I'm not suggesting, put aside large, huge portions. Don't have to, be like that. Take a small dish. If this is what you can do, do that. Just a small handful of something. A bit of rice, a few of the curries you have, whatever it is you have. If you have a chocolate you want to eat, take a small piece of it, put it to a side. That's the first and foremost. In your mind, think of it in those terms. The first and foremost part, always to the Buddha. I encourage you to get into that habit. See, I can share these things with you because I know you're receptive to all this. If you're looking at me like, what a bunch of nonsense, then I wouldn't say these things to you. No, trust me, there are sometimes audience that I have to sit and talk to, and I feel if I said things like that, they'll think that I'm crazy because they're not ready for it yet. They're a long way off from hearing things like that. See, I didn't say these things to you right when we first started these talks, did we? We didn't even do the Deva Aradhana when we first started these talks. But how come gradually these things started to become part and parcel of our journey? When the student is ready, that's when the teacher appears. So to get more out of whoever is sat here, you have to become more. When you become more, you get more. And then that helps you become even more. So that you can get even more. That's how it works. So, if you can, and I see no reason why anyone can't do this, but it's everyone to themselves. If you can, when you go home today, not to be late for lunch, but from tomorrow then, when you cook your breakfast, have your afternoon meal, whatever, if you're at home, if you're at the workplace, leave it for now. But when you're at home, you'll always cook something. The first and foremost of whatever it is you have cooked, put it aside and offer it to the Buddha. Not Gautama Buddha, Buddhahood. Because if you offer to Buddhahood, Buddhahood will offer back to you. What is Buddhahood? Nibbāna. Don't desire, become deserving. And then the whole universe will come to you. Let's call it a day. Let us take a moment then to transfer the merits that we have all acquired today by making offerings to the infinite virtues of the Noble Triple Gem, inviting the Swami Master to deliver the sermon, as well as creating a conducive environment for all to come along and practice the Dhamma. You have contemplated the truths, you have assimilated the Dhamma, and made every effort to internalize these doctrines. By the merits that we have all acquired today, let us transfer these merits to the bhikkhus and bhikkhunis, upasakas and upasikas who have since time immemorial protected and preserved the sublime teachings of the Buddha and passed it down to generations of the noble lineage in the form of the Tripitaka, which is thankfully available to us today to study, understand and comprehend the Dhamma. Let us take a moment to transfer these merits to the monks and nuns resident in your local temples and nunneries who have always been by your side through thick and thin, come rain or shine, as well as the Mahanayakas, the Anunayakas of all the chapters who are resident throughout the world and who have sacrificed their lives to protect and preserve the Sambuddha Sasana. Let us transfer these merits to my teacher, Guru Swami Mahanse, as well as all the monks resident at the monastery and the Anagarikas and Anagarikas attached to the monastery. Let us take a moment to transfer these merits to our devotees and friends of the monastery who, for the sake of merits to help them attain the supreme bliss of Nibbāna, continue to sustain the Mahasangha. This includes all of you who provide the Mahasangha with shelter, alms, robes and medicines, as well as pass on your know-how and continue to extend your well wishes. May they all rejoice in these merits. Let us also transfer these merits to our mothers and fathers, brothers and sisters, sons and daughters, grandparents, uncles, aunts, cousins, nephews and nieces, our friends, our acquaintances, our employees and our employees, our teachers, as well as anyone and everyone who's helped us, supported us and assisted us in any way, shape or form. May by the power of all the merits we have acquired, they all be free from any physical and mental ailments and overcoming obstacles to their spiritual progress. May they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and may they all attain the supreme bliss of Nibbāna. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let us transfer these merits to the devas and brahmanas, spirits and demons, primarily the Sakadeva, as well as all the numerous gods and deities who have committed themselves to fulfill and preserve the Sambuddhasasana. Let us transfer these merits to our guardian deities who keep a watchful eye over us and keep us out of harm's way. May they prosper in divine power and wisdom. May they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and may they all attain the supreme bliss of Nibbāna. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let us also transfer these merits to our forefathers, our ancestors, those who have passed away in our names, reminding ourselves that it is in their blood, sweat and tears today we are able to enjoy the comforts of life as we do. Let us also transfer these merits to members of the armed forces as well as the police force who sacrificed their lives for the peace and harmony of our nation, as well as those who lost their lives in the wars, be their friend or foe. Let us transfer these merits to those who lost their lives in natural disasters and calamities such as tsunamis and earthquakes, landslides, fires, floods, pandemics and so on, reminding ourselves that in this infinitely long journey of samsara they will all have been mothers and fathers to us, friends of ours, siblings of ours, as well as people who have helped us, supported us, and assisted us in many ways and forms, and therefore with a sense of gratitude and loving kindness and of compassion, let us transfer these merits to all of them. May by the power of these merits, if any of them have been born in the woeful planes, they redeem themselves to be born in the blissful plane. May by the power of these merits, they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and may they all attain the supreme bliss of Nibbāna. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And finally, may by the power and blessings of all the merits we have acquired throughout the day, we be able to witness the advent of many hundreds of thousands of Arahants on this blessed land. And finally, may you and I and everyone who's helped make this program a success become a Rahatan Mahanse or an Arahat Theranin Mahanse in this very life itself and in the era of this Sri Sambuddhasasana itself. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. May the blessings of the Noble Triple Gem be with you all. And the members of the Mahasangha will transfer their blessings to you. Raga kinnen midetva dvesha kinnen midetva moha kinnen midetva Nibbāna parama sukhayan sukhita taravetva Nibbāna parama sukhayan sukhita taravetva Mamada siyalu loka siyalu satvayo Nibbāna parama sukhayan sukhita taravetva Nibbāna parama sukhayan sukhita taravetva Nibbāna parama sukhayan sukhita taravetva Rajagiriya niveva dveshagini niveva mohagini niveva nivan sapalaveva nivan sapalaveva nivan sapalaveva Tunjvange Suisi Ananta Mahaguna Belen Silu Loka Silu Satyoma Nibbāna Parama Sukhain Sukta Tarvetva Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.